Who ruined Thanksgiving for you this year? Story 1. I did. I checked my work email Tuesday morning, had a Teams meeting, and put a load of laundry in, and then the next thing I remember, it was 8 hours later and I was delirious and going into surgery for appendicitis. Oof, I wish you a smooth recovery. I had my appendix removed 3 weeks ago, and just this week I didn't have much pain getting out of bed. I also have a numbness in my belly around the largest incision since they did it laparoscopically. A few years ago, we drove 6 hours to our in-laws on Wednesday night. I wake up Thanksgiving morning feeling like crap. 3 hours later, I'm in the ER. Kidney stone. It was a crappy holiday. That was me on my birthday this year. My wife tried to do something nice for me and booked us an out-of-town getaway. Woke up at 12:02 a.m. on my birthday in the hotel room in unbearable pain. Tried to ride it out and finally woke her up around 4 a.m. to drive me to the ER. Kidney stones are no joke. Appendicitis is no joke. My appendix ruptured in 2011 after weeks of pain and an urgent care visit that resulted in the doctor saying, "You're just constipated." They somehow missed my inflamed appendix, which was causing the backup. So on the final day after taking laxatives, which didn't help, I went to work and ended up on the bathroom floor reeling in pain. Called my mom to bring me to the hospital. They were about to give me a CT scan when, as I was lying on the gurney, my appendix ruptured. It felt like someone stuck a knife into my abdomen and started twisting. I told the nurse, and they gave me the scan anyway. After taking me out, I vomited all over the floor. Got back to the room. My mother said I was white as a ghost. And after the ruptured organ plus the laxatives, things started to flow. Shortly after, the doctor came in and said they had to do surgery right away, otherwise sepsis could happen. The surgery went fine except for the breathing tube scratching my esophagus, and I woke with a fever. I stayed in the hospital for 3 days until the fever subsided and my breathing went back to semi-normal. I was coughing up blood. The doctor told me I was pretty lucky that my appendix ruptured while in the hospital, because if I had been at work or home, then it may have been too late to get into the surgery because my insides could have been poisoned. Story 2. My cousin's new girlfriend brought her own Tupperware to my family's house and proceeded to, unasked, scrape most of the leftovers into her containers. You could have heard a pin drop. I think my uncle almost launched across the kitchen. It was priceless and will go down in family TG history. Just amazing. No notes. Here I am second-guessing every word I say to anyone, and she's got the amazing audacity to just walk into someone else's house and grab all of the Thanksgiving leftovers. I'm kind of impressed, yet would for sure ask her what she was doing and educate her with whatever degree of bloody-mindedness was required. As an Italian, this made me cringe as well. When we gather together, could either be for family things or a less informal gathering, could it be at someone's house in general, we don't bring our own Tupperware because it's considered rude. However, if you really did enjoy something and would love for the host to just give you some, you could either ask for some more to bring home, which of course depends on how close you are to that person, but usually the host will ask the participants how would they like to have some leftovers, or also simply ask for the recipe, and that usually leads to a "would you love some to bring home?" I have never ever seen one of my close family members straight up ask for leftovers, even if they could simply do that because of how close we are. We just don't. It's a matter of manners. This is funny to me as my mom comes to visit me in Amsterdam, and we always invite my boyfriend's, Dutch white, family to dinner. They love my mom's cooking, and my mom always cooks a lot of food. Not very Dutch. So I asked his mom and sister if they wanted to take some food home, and not only did they agree, his mom said, "I thought you would say that," and proceeded to her bag and took out 2 Tupperware. I ended up giving all of the leftovers to the mom and the sister, even what I had planned for lunch the next day. My mom and I found this very cute and funny because you would never do this in India. Now it's a cute joke in the family. She should have done what my wife and I did. We got married and got our families to do Thanksgiving and Christmas together. Now our kids are the only grandkids in the place. So the older folks are practically tripping all over themselves to give us leftovers. My mother-in-law makes a clam dip that everyone really likes. She gave us all the leftovers of that dip and had bought an extra bag of chips just to give to us. You can't just show up and take stuff. You have to work your way in and make yourself indispensable to the family first. Story 3. Not sure who, but we were walking our dogs when the police pulled up down the street and started yelling, "Get down! Get down!" We saw a dude spill out of a house followed by about 10 family members, all of them just screaming at him. Cops were arresting him, and some of the family started trying to kick the crap out of the dude, so they got arrested too. By the time it was done, there were about 5 or 6 police cars and about as many family members in cuffs. Many years ago, I had a table saw accident a couple of days before Christmas. While sitting in the corridor in the ER waiting to get my finger fixed, there was a guy who had showed up at his cousin's house for the holiday, and apparently they were not happy to see him and showed him with an enthusiastic application of a knife. He needed more than 50 stitches in his back. This reminds me of the time I missed my company's Christmas party because a SWAT team had my neighborhood locked down. They were looking for a guy who sometimes stayed in the house diagonal from ours. He had an outstanding warrant on weapons charges, if I remember correctly. When I got home from work, I had to be escorted to my back door by an officer, and they weren't allowing anyone to leave their homes. Turned out to be pretty anticlimactic. After about 2 hours, they broke down the front door, but no one was home. Story 4. My roommate's dog. She is a husky that got out. Have you ever chased down a husky? It's a pain in the ass. Run away from any dog that's gotten out and then drop and play dead. Always a good way to get them. I used to do something similar with my escape artist Beagle. He would just run away from me, so I would yell and get his attention, turn my back to him and just start walking. He couldn't help chasing me, so he usually caught up to me within a couple of minutes. In honor of the day, Thanksgiving, I also have to share the fact that he learned to open the fridge. And the Monday before Thanksgiving, he ate a 12-pound turkey, wrapper and all. I admit I was impressed he ate it in the 3 hours that we were gone. When I was a teenager, we had a beagle and also a stepladder over the cinder block wall to the neighbor's house behind us. Similar-aged children from both families who were friends. He kept escaping somehow. One time we found him in the neighbor's yard, but one morning I caught him red-handed climbing up the ladder and then walking on the top of the 4-inch wide wall. Hound dogs are determined idiots. My sister has a coonhound now, and she's constantly planning her escape. Could be worse. One Thanksgiving, my buddy's giant-ass Bernese mountain dog tried to be sly and snag some turkey off the food table as he walked by. He grabbed the turkey leg that was still attached and ripped the whole bird off the table, knocked a couple of other dishes off the table in the process. The noise scared him and he took off running, still holding the leg and scattering the rest of the turkey throughout the house. The other dogs at Friendsgiving instantly descended on the spilled food like piranha in a cartoon. Just as I managed to corner the mountain dog, he ate the whole turkey leg in 3 bites. Pure chaos. I chased mine for 2 hours around our neighborhood a week ago, and he ran out onto the highway. A woman who almost hit him pulled over, and we both chased him back into the neighborhood. We just moved, so he's not that familiar with the area. About 30+ minutes after I last saw him, I was about to have a breakdown when I drove by the house, and there he was on a leash with someone. He ended up at a house around the corner of mine. That guy walks his dog by my house every day and sees him in the window, so he knows where he lives. It's great to know there are so many helpful people out there in this divided world. Had to chase down my ex's husky once when he got out. I finally got a hold of him and he was screaming bloody murder, like as if a car just hit him. I was carrying him back to her apartment and I rolled my ankle and he howled when I fell. I was still holding on to him, but I couldn't get up because of the way I fell over. People heard him yell that time and came out to see what happened, and they thought he did get hit and I was holding him while he was hurt, and they all panicked. I finally got one person to come help me up after I explained he's fine, I'm the one that's hurt. He's just a dramatic asshole. Story 5. My favorite part of Thanksgiving is logging into Reddit and spending hours reading about other people's Thanksgiving dramas. Well, I could give you a detailed write-up on how much I freaking hate it when my mom interrupts me when I'm speaking, but I think the Cliff Notes pretty much tell the whole story. Also, I think next year I'd rather have a root canal and throw myself in front of a train than play apples to apples with a bunch of drunk extended family. No wonder Dad spent every family gathering by himself in the garage chain-smoking cigarettes. We spent every Thanksgiving with my in-laws and they were exactly like the Costanzas. It was absolutely surreal and overwhelming in the moment, but hilarious to experience such loud chaos. I'm very reserved, so the first year I wanted to be polite and make a good impression. But I felt like a deer in headlights the entire time. Over the years, I learned how they communicated with each other effectively, so I was right there matching tones and yelling right back. Both my husband's parents passed away over the past year, so this Thanksgiving is eerily quiet with just the two of us at home. So here I am now, craving the theatrics and drama. I'm late, and you might not see this, but someone deserves to hear the tea. We learned that my dad holed up in a hotel with a man for over a week and his wife couldn't get him to come home. She sent all of his kids screenshots of his texts with this man, D pics included. Yes, we're furious about it. We didn't know he liked men. They aren't divorced and are acting like it never happened. I'm very happy I hardly see them. Story 6. My whole damn family took a nap right after dinner, and I'm still just waiting for them to wake up so that I can have pie. Story 7. Well, my dad died unexpectedly on Thanksgiving afternoon, which put a bit of a damper on the dinner. I can't really fault him though, it wasn't like he planned it. Or if he did a really good job of covering his tracks. Hey, mine died on the same day 4 years ago. Be prepared for this time of year to really start to suck, and know that it's okay to not be thankful, or to not go to people's celebrations if they don't understand your situation. Eventually, you will be surrounded by people who know and understand and can treat you the way that you would like during that time. Story 8. This was the first Thanksgiving in my lifetime with no fighting. The food was all great, and my nieces and nephews were grateful for me being there, so I held the tears inside. Ours is surprisingly efficient and has low drama. This year we had 31 people, no fights, no cops, no meth. Next year will be a heavy year, maybe 50, with all of the cousins cycling back in from the his family, her family routine, new jobs settling in, and vacation time building up. We're kinda like cicadas in that sense, so maybe something will go down next time. Story 9. Dad tried to hit my mom the night before and ended up punching a hole in the wall of the new house. We were supposed to host dinner for everybody, but obviously we canceled it. My family suffered for years with an abusive father. It's hard. A school counselor is a good first step. There are shelters that house women and their children and help them get on their feet. Your mom doesn't have to wait. In the meantime, while your mom gathers the courage to leave him, find people you can trust and talk to. Keep your eyes out for the rays of hope and light. And just know this won't last forever, even when it feels like it. DM me if you need to talk. I'm here for you. I've been reading through the replies to your comment, and I've seen quite a few asking what action you took. Like, did you call the cops, or saying that you need to leave, or at least make sure your mom does X, Y, or Z? I just want to say that it isn't in your control at all what either of your parents do. Don't ever feel guilty about seeing this behavior and not fixing things. You can be there for your mom for moral support. Love her and remind her that she matters. Don't forget that you matter too. I hope you and your mom can stay safe. I'm sorry that your holiday was ruined. Story 10. My favorite uncle was diagnosed yesterday with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. We all love him. His family still came by to see us all. It only brought us closer together, but damn, we are freaking sad. My favorite uncle was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer 3 weeks ago. Weird coincidence. It's been heartbreaking. He's a ray of light for our entire family. It's making the holidays very hard. Just lost my father-in-law to pancreatic cancer about a week and a half ago. My only advice is if you or anyone else wants to do any bucket list type items with him, do it sooner than later. Like next week. The disease progresses at an incomprehensibly fast rate. You will think you have time, but trust me, you don't. There are steep plateaus. 1 week he will be walking and the next he will be wheelchair bound. He will want to go to his favorite restaurant and the next week he will be on his deathbed. Really sorry for you and your family. My favorite aunt passed away from stage 4 pancreatic cancer earlier in the year and she deteriorated rapidly within 3 months. I thought I'd still be able to see her one last time between hospital stays. Screw cancer. Spend as much time with him as you can. Pancreatic cancer is brutal and fast. Sending you hugs if you want them. Hey, my dad was diagnosed 2 months ago with a malt lymphoma. We've been in and out of the doctor since this January with testing, surgeries, and so on. Getting a cancer diagnosis for a parent is a huge emotional blow, and it's damn scary. Please know that it's okay to cry and to tell your parents that you too are scared. No one has prepared you for this. If pancreatic cancer does not run in your family, your dad will be asked if he wants to do genetic testing via a cheek swab and a blood draw. If you have siblings, this is helpful to also let you know what you could be predisposed to. However, be aware that if you don't have a life insurance policy for yourself and you opt for genetic testing, or you've done 23andMe, you can be genetically discriminated against by knowing cancer runs in your family, doing the genetic testing, and buying a life insurance policy. If you don't have a policy, buy one. Wait a month and then do the testing. The genetic counselor will provide you and any siblings or family with a letter that can make the test for free because of the familial history. But you have to be referred by your primary to do this. If you already have a policy in place, then no worries because insurance companies will not be able to discriminate against you. Story 11. Nobody. I'm an only child and my parents stay to themselves. It's us three and the pugs tonight going through all the inside jokes that we have built over 30 plus years. It's nice. Mine was just me, my parents, and 2 dogs. And their 2 dogs. Parents didn't bring up national politics and we watched some football and basketball. It was very nice. My siblings are scattered all over the country and the extended family didn't invite us to their gathering. It was very nice and peaceful this year. Story 12. I ran a marathon on Sunday. I was being asked about it and answering questions. My mother-in-law said loudly, "My name isn't the only athlete at the table. Her new husband did triathlons." I politely said, "Oh cool, what kind did you do?" He said, "It was 40 years ago." Story 13. My mom smoked too much weed and got paranoid that my dad, who was not there, could hear us talking about him. Story 14. Me and my sadness. Separated from my husband 2 weeks ago. It was so sudden, and this is the first time I have had this holiday without him. Together for almost 9 years. Living with my mom for a bit until I decided what to do next, but she's not very sensitive to the stress and sadness I'm feeling, so I'm on edge. Last year was my first year celebrating the holidays without my now ex-husband. We'd been together 13 years prior to that. Honestly, the hardest part wasn't the divorce, it was that my family expected me to just seamlessly rejoin the traditional fold and be the same happy, whimsical, always pleased to help person that I'd been previously. In reality, I was sad, I was stressed, and the last thing I wanted to do was either host family or go to a big family celebration where I was expected to put on a happy face and pretend everything was back to normal for me. And no one in my family really understood that, and they were upset that I ruined their holidays by being sad. I'm with you. My partner and I ended things 9 days ago. I'm living with my parents temporarily. We were together for 3 years and lived together. He said he needed time apart to think, which I took to mean maybe he wasn't sure because I wanted to try to work things out. I went to the house yesterday to get a few things while he was working, and a lot of my things were moved into the hallway and boxed up. He hasn't contacted me since I left 9 days ago, so for the first 8 days I had no idea what I was going to do. Were we going to work it out? Do I need to find a place to live? Do I need more clothes to just stay at my parents' house for a bit longer? Is he taking space but still wants to fix things? It was torture. Sometimes every minute felt like a whole day. The uncertainty and utter despair, the squeaky child-sized bunk bed I'm sleeping in, the routine in upheaval. It all sucks. Going there and seeing my things packed at least gave me an answer and a path to start down. I could hardly keep it together in the car on the way to Thanksgiving, and I cried in front of my entire extended family when I said what I was grateful for. I have a lot to be thankful for, and I'm really freaking sad. I feel your pain. Sometimes it's so much that it's physical pain. I know it gets better because I've done it before, but it doesn't make it any easier at the moment though. Sending you love and strength. Something good will come from these hardships. We don't see it yet, but we will. Story 15. Me, technically. Accidentally knocked a candle with glass around it off a shelf that I didn't see. Broke right before my 3-year-old nephew/brother and sister-in-law walked in. Glass everywhere. Apologized, but still sent my mom into a screaming fit at everyone. Somehow my other brother got blamed more than me. Everyone went home within 5 minutes. No one ate. Stuck in my room to avoid getting yelled at till I head back to far away where I live now on Saturday. Happens once every 3 years. Good times. This is exactly what happened one Christmas when my big sister was in her late teens/early 20s and happened on Boxing Day, my birthday. She had bought me a real goldfish for my birthday, which was actually a really lovely present, but had kept it hidden in my mother's study for 2 days. When she brought it out, she caught on something and dropped the bowl and water on the floor on some old vinyl records my mom had. Just to note, these were old and loved, but bashed up and always kept in places where people tripped and spilled things all the time, especially overwatered houseplants, and house cats loved to clip their nails on them, so they were wanted but not cared for. Never used, just beloved clutter. So my mom lost her crap screaming at my sister as to why she chose to make such a mess and purposefully ruin her beloved records. My mother is just standing and screaming at her while my sister and I are scrambling to save this fish and mop up the mess. My sister tried to stay calm and focused, and after the mess and drama were over, she went up to her room very upset and stayed there the entire day. Of course, my mom spent the whole day complaining about how my sister was making a scene and ruining my birthday for her and everyone else. I felt utterly crappy and only spoke out on my sister's behalf before being shut down. I tried to spend quieter times with my sister, but my mom kept complaining, eventually convincing my sister to come down for the main meal and cake. My sister didn't talk to her and went back to her room when my mom tried to apologize, but mostly focus on how my sister tried to ruin my big day, which is when I told my mom to just stop, and she ended up drinking on her own that evening, whilst my sister and I just watched TV in her room the rest of the evening. When I was working with a therapist about my mom, I once told the therapist that I ruined an evening because I did something small that made mom blow up for the rest of the night, similar to you breaking a candle, which leads to Thanksgiving being cancelled. The therapist told me that it's not my job to control other people's emotional reactions. Yes, I made a mistake, but it was a very small mistake, and my mother is the one who should have been in control of her emotions enough to react appropriately, and that her explosion was way too strong of an emotional response for my small mistake. Good luck with therapy. You didn't deserve this. Story 16. My daughter showed up 3 weeks early a few days ago, and the doctor said she's still developing, so we shouldn't really take her anywhere outside our home for a few weeks. I unfortunately had to cancel all plans of traveling out to my dad's, then out to my mom's, then over to the wife's parents' house. It was tragic. The wife and I and the baby were forced to stay home alone watching Christmas movies, making an ad hoc Thanksgiving dinner, and laughing and having a great time peacefully alone. P.S. Best Thanksgiving ever. When my husband and I were in the early stages of dating, there was one Thanksgiving when we decided to make up excuses about going to the other's family for dinner and vice versa. Families are out of state, so it was believable. We got super high, put on all kinds of fun music, my husband showed me how to spatchcock a turkey, and we got to cook only the dishes that we wanted to eat. It was so much fun, and it was the first time in my life and his that we weren't spending Thanksgiving with our big respective Southern families. And it just turned into a routine for us. The day before Thanksgiving, we go to the dispensary to stock up, we spatchcock a turkey, and stick it in the fridge after slathering it with butter. Thanksgiving morning, since it's just us two, we sleep late, we cook in our pajamas, we decorate for Christmas, and since no families are around, we get to have a little holiday quickie whenever we want throughout the day. None of that wake up and get ready so that we can be at relatives' house by noon nonsense. More couples need to try this out. Whether it's a viable excuse like yours, new baby, or a made-up excuse like ours, just do it. Screw the whole massive family get-together thing. Take it easy one year and you'll never look back. 100%. That sounds incredible, and you're right. I can't recommend it enough. I watch a million cooking videos on YouTube every week, and while we were working on dinner last night, I kept talking about how much I want to spatchcock a turkey, or even a chicken, because you can do so many cool things with it, cooking-wise. But yeah, everything you're talking about sounds amazing and lines up exactly with what I'm saying about last night. I can't second this point hard enough. Take time off from your families and people. Try actually enjoying the holiday for once. It's incredible. Maybe our comments here will inspire a couple of you out there to have an alternative Thanksgiving next year. So did you end up spatchcocking the turkey? Freaking amazing, isn't it? It cooks faster, has much better and crispier skin, still super moist. You won't want to have turkey any other way once you do it. We like to spatchcock ours the night before. Lightly separate the skin from the meat but leave it attached and shove a ton of butter up under the skin between the skin and the meat. Put another layer of butter on top of the skin, let it sit in the fridge uncovered overnight, super moist, dripping turkey with the crispiest skin ever. Hopefully yours turned out well as well. Story 17. This is the first Thanksgiving with just me and my wife, and we freaking love it. We made a monster feast and have been laying here on the couch watching that slasher movie Thanksgiving on Netflix, and now we are watching Hot Frosty. Best Thanksgiving I've ever had. One of my favorite Thanksgivings was with an ex-boyfriend, and we avoided everyone and just cooked a normal-sized meal together with like 3 sides. I don't eat meat or poultry, so he cooked himself a little Cornish hen, and I taught him how to make gravy with the drippings. Cooked, ate, watched some TV/football with his kiddies, gave his backyard chickens some mealworms and other treats, and drank wine. Nice relaxing day and night to be thankful for. Story 18. My mom did within 5 minutes of me walking into the door. She asked me to make the dinner this year because it's just gotten to be too much for her. I happily accepted, planned the meal, bought the food, and prepped as much as I could beforehand. I arrived between 9 and 9:30 this morning to make myself a cup of coffee and make myself a quick breakfast before getting the turkey oiled, herbed up, and getting it in the oven. She offered me leftover blueberry pancakes that she had made for the rest of the family. I declined because I don't eat pancakes or waffles, plus I just wanted something light, which was the tortilla with cheese and 1 egg I was going to make for myself. I started getting a smallish pan out of the drawer that was the perfect size for 1 egg and tortilla. She immediately got bent out of shape that I wouldn't use the huge pan that she had already used for the pancakes. I shouldn't dirty another pan and said it's her kitchen and I'll follow her rules. I said I would wash both pans, etc. She kept going on about her kitchen and her rules, so I said, fine, you can make Thanksgiving dinner then. She got so mad that she threw a blueberry pancake at me, staining my shirt with the blueberry. So yeah, that's how my day started. And yes, I cooked the dinner because she went into the living room to pout. It definitely colored the rest of the day for me, and didn't help that my mom and dad were generally grouchy at one thing or another all day, mostly with the grandkids. I really don't want to do any more holidays with any of my family after this. There's a huge gulf between this happened once or twice and there has been a consistent pattern of abusive behavior my entire life. People get old, break down, have bad days, and take it out on loved ones, get robbed of who they were by crappy diseases for which there are no cures. When that happens, if they loved and nurtured us in our times of need, it only seems right to love and nurture them in theirs, and to learn coping mechanisms to protect ourselves from the worst of the damage. My mom's of a similar age. She turned 76 this year. She's been sober for 20 years now, but she has a lifelong health issue that led her to self-medicate for 30 to 40 years, and that eventually robbed her of both of her independence and her desire to even be independent. After a fall that nearly killed her in 2021, she hasn't been the same. She and my dad have slowly isolated themselves from most of the rest of the family, lost touch with all but a couple of my dad's friends, and they're just shrinking. She's been a difficult person most of my adult life. I'm almost 44, but recently I'm not sure if I'm going to get overly bubbly mom, or flips me off for asking her to say something positive mom, or have a pleasant conversation followed up with a nasty text telling me I have no idea how hard her life has been and I should mind my own business. She's repeating herself multiple times in the same conversation and over the course of several conversations. I looked up the causes and symptoms of dementia the other day and no bueno. But she and my dad are both stubborn and paranoid, and I have always been both their pride and joy. Only child, moderately successful, and the little boy who doesn't know what he's talking about. My dad asks for help with my mom, but won't articulate what that looks like and gets angry when I'm critical of him in any way, shape, or form. My hands are tied aside from gentle nudges in what I hope is the right direction. Story 19. My boyfriend's brother. His mom bought 10+ steaks that we grilled for 4 of us, expecting him to just show up a little late. He never showed up. We ate without him, without waiting, because apparently he's not that reliable to begin with, but it still broke my boyfriend's heart that his siblings made no effort to come to their parents' house for the holiday. Similarly, for me, I spend my Thanksgiving with family, aunt and uncle, in another state because my folks passed decades ago. My sister, who is estranged from that aunt and uncle because she burns bridges and has not been present in my life since about 2000, made it all about her feelings and how I didn't choose to visit her, the baby daddy, and her newborn. Nothing but radio silence when I didn't respond to her invite, but as soon as she heard where I was, drama ensued. Feelings were apparently hurt, and I got big complaints about leaving them hanging and unknowing. Meanwhile, she never followed up. This happens every time I'm at their place. She's 40+. I'm exhausted and over-explaining my decision to be with the only parent figures I have. Selfish siblings suck, and they rarely realize how selfish they are. Moving forward, I'm being the selfish one. Uncle being present isn't a given. Stop expecting others to stop what they're doing to prioritize your new life. End of rant. Happy holidays. The day and night were marvelous outside of that. Story 20. My mom. I got woken up at 7:15 by my mom screaming bloody murder because how dare I not be up yet? I was not told when to be up. I throw on some clothes and she and my sister judge me because it's not work clothes. Jeans and a plain shirt. They start barking orders and continue to scold me for not being up. Again, not given time to be up. My orders to take out the recycling in the pouring rain. Definitely needed to be done right that second. My only saving grace was my dad rightfully chewing them out. I told them if they yelled again, I was taking my crap and going back to my apartment. They do this every single year. I freaking hate Thanksgiving. What double standard are you tired of? Your boss getting angry if you're a couple minutes late, but then expects you to have no problem regularly staying on 2+ hours after your shift is meant to end. I don't have a problem with staying and doing overtime, but when it starts to be a drama every time I want to leave a bit early with those tens to hundreds of saved up OT hours, you can frick right off. If that's how we play, then OT is over and done with. Man, when I worked at Steak and Shake when I was 19, I didn't drive, and I told them that the last bus left at 11:30 p.m., and yet I was constantly made to stay and miss my bus. I had to wait all night a few times because I couldn't get a ride, till like 6 in the morning. Some businesses just don't care. Why is dental insurance different from health insurance? Aren't teeth part of my overall health? What the hell? Because teeth are luxury bones. Duh. Luxury bones, lol. I'm starting to use this one. To borrow from Matt Haig, people being okay with mental illness until someone shows symptoms of one. 100%. People like to talk about being cool with it, act all understanding, and then get super hostile if someone with untreated mental illness shows up. They don't mind it when they can't see it, but can't handle it when you actually see it in action. If anyone is feeling depressed, please reach out to me, so I can encourage you to cut that crap out. COVID restrictions applying to regular people but not celebrities or politicians. My favorite was UK Health Minister carrying on an affair with his assistant whilst going on TV and telling us not to hug our loved ones. Sounds like he wasn't hugging his loved ones either. Consumers are expected to curb their use of their plastic waste and carbon by corporations and regulatory bodies alike, while Nestle will destroy a natural habitat to make bottled water in plastic bottles and dump the waste into your grandma's urn if it's affordable. Kurzgesagt made a great video on that the other day. They talk about how consumers reducing their carbon footprint is not the solution by a light year. But then they made the most important point at the end that it seems everyone forgets. Consumers and voters showing preference for eco-friendly alternatives generates the political and economic drive to shift to a better option. People who care about meat alternatives gaining widespread adoption, buying those products in their infancy, are the reason you can buy Beyond Meat at Target. Similar for things like plastic bag bans, politicians would never consider a ban if they didn't think they had the will of the people backing them. Celebrities lecturing about climate change when they have the carbon footprint of a small town. Jason Momoa's GQ interview recently made me so mad with this. He kept talking about how plastic was destroying the ocean, and then repeatedly talked about how much stuff he traveled with, instruments, motorbikes, etc. This is the guy with his own line of bottled water. I saw a promo for it, and he said something like, "It's just bottled water, but I feel good about it, and my retina's detached from my involuntary rolling." Entry-level jobs that require experience. They think it weeds out the ones with no experience, but it just gives them candidates who are prepared to exaggerate or lie. It's also concerning how often I see stuff like 5 years experience with this thing that came out like a year or two ago on the job requirements. How it's perfectly okay for a potential employer to ask your salary expectations even before an interview, but a candidate asking what the job pays is somehow a red flag for HR or a big no-no. Like, if all the employer cares about is what I will cost them before learning anything else about me, then I should be able to ask too. But no, I'm branded as only caring about money. And you don't, corporate prick? Seriously, what do they expect from us? We, or at least I, wouldn't work if not for the money. Not because it's fun or we care about the company or want to make friends or whatever, it's to make money, so it should be more normal to ask about it. I'm job hunting at the moment, and it's just a waste of everyone's time and money. Once I get a final interview, if they either won't tell me or haven't told me, and it's not enough money, then there's no way I'm accepting the job. They look shocked when I tell them. Almost every company I've had interviews with offering a competitive salary seem like terrible companies full of aggressive middle management with completely unreal expectations of their staff. I've stopped applying for them. My manager at work not paying for her drinks but not allowing staff to even get staff discounts for theirs? If that's just a manager and not the owner, I bet the owner would like to hear about it. And if it is the owner, that's fine to me. If it's the owner, it comes out of their pockets regardless. Parenting double standards. The gender of the parent does not make the parent. Dads are not babysitting their children, they are parenting. This. Also, I've had to fight this in the kindergarten my child goes to, because all information, news, calls go only to my wife's phone, even though for the past few years, I've been the one who has brought and picked up the kid every day. Wife is working long days, but I'm remotely. OMG, this is an ongoing battle at my kid's school. I, the mom, work in an office. I cannot leave in the middle of the day to do things because my job is very busy, and I have to be here to do it for privacy reasons. My husband, the dad, is a full-time student right now. But it's all still online. While, yes, he is very, very busy with his classes and homework, he is still the parent who does all drop-offs, pickups, parent-teacher meetings, class parent days, all of it. I obviously help when I can, but he is the one who does most of it. The school will still call me if a kid is sick or forgot their lunch or anything happens. The same conversation happens every time. Can you please call their dad? I'm at work and unable to leave, but he is the first parent to contact. They always respond with, well, we like to call the mom just in case parents didn't fill out the paperwork correctly. Are you kidding me? My husband is not my roommate. He is their parent. Customers being able to verbally and sometimes physically assault workers while the worker just has to stand there and take it, or they'll be fired. One time at a local grocery store, a clerk straight up told a shouty guy to frick off. Saw the same clerk a week later, was pretty impressed. I once told an inpatient prick to frick off while working at a retail pharmacy for being too entitled to wait in line. The other customers took my side real quick, thankfully. I also got praise from the store manager, but it's a long story. Small town politics helps sometimes for better and for worse. My principal taking days to read and reply to my emails, if ever, versus me being told at 8 in the morning that I should have known something because he sent me an email at 10 in the evening the night before. Reminds me of a power-tripping boss. They know they're being unreasonable. They just enjoy the power trip they get by making you feel like you're incompetent. Don't let it bother you too much. It's just an evil little mind game narcissists love to play. I know that. In fact, I genuinely believe he's sincerely incompetent in keeping up with his inbox. It just bothers me because while bad management hurts profits in a business, in a school it hurts the quality of the service, and, in the end, the kids. It's so frustrating. After swim practice when I was 11, my friends pushed me out of the shower room and held the door closed when a bunch of older ladies were getting together for water aerobics. One of them was my teacher. They laughed and I just stood there naked pushing on a door. Nobody got in trouble. If they pushed a girl naked out of the locker room and held the door, it'd be on the news. Things happened to me in locker rooms and I got in trouble for speaking about it. You spoke to people who would be at a loss or disadvantage if the news broke. Speak to a lawyer, not to anyone who could be held liable, like the owner of the building or coaches or teachers. Me, a non-smoker, being told off for being 5 minutes late to work, while smokers spend 30 minutes at least a day on smoke breaks. I just wander off and have a cup of tea every time the smokers head off on a break. My boss did comment, so I told him I was addicted to caffeine, so had to. He didn't have an answer to that. Old coworker of mine started going out for apple breaks when the smokers would go out. He'd go out and eat an apple for the same amount of time the smokers would take to finish up. Basic laws not applying to people with money or power. I thought the US was based on an idea that nobody was above the law. Punished by a fine is legal for a price, and that's if they even get fined. If the penalty for breaking the law is a fine, then that law only exists for the lower class. People that say, don't worry about what other people think, be yourself. But make judgments about people based on behavior they don't understand. If you don't understand something, ask about it. Learn about it. Talk about it to gain an understanding. I wish more value was placed on learning and understanding people's intentions versus what you see on the surface. and don't say things unless you really mean them. I agree, but not everybody is okay with questions. I think that's a big part of the problem. Some people get easily offended by things. They expect everyone to have knowledge about all cultures, sexual orientation, handicaps, religions, doesn't matter. Some people get very upset. So I've stopped asking questions unless I know the person extremely well and know that they won't be offended. A good rule of thumb I use is to ask about it if it's a choice, hobbies, music, etc., and make a mental note to Google it if it's intrinsic, religion, culture, etc. People are usually happy to talk about fun stuff, so no base knowledge is needed. Bigger topics are easier to broach if you already know at least a little bit about it. What double standard am I not tired of? Hey, you should mail that a post. What if he female that a post instead? I'm broke. Screw it, you get a job. I'm 22 million in debt, but it's okay. The heck? I once heard this: owe the bank 10 grand, then you have a problem. Owe the bank 10 million, then the bank has a problem. If you owe the bank $100, it's your problem. If you owe the bank 100 million, that's the bank's problem. J. Paul Getty. Defending yourself. The fact that someone can be punished for defending themselves when no one else would, in my experience worse, is bullcrap to me. Example, a former bullied kid that punched back and got screwed. Happened to my boyfriend several times in school. He got jumped, but when he hit back, he got in trouble. Insanity. In my case, I got beaten up, didn't retaliate at all. Bully had rich parents who supported the school, so I was the one who got in trouble as I allegedly swore and instigated it, meaning him beating the crap out of me was apparently self-defense. Star student athletes are nearly untouchable. If they make the school look good, the school will almost never take action against them, as evidenced by the fact that at my college, several of the football stars would literally just park wherever they wanted and never get towed or ticketed. I'm not talking about things like parking in the faculty lot or where you don't have a pass. I'm talking things like parking on the sidewalk in front of the student union or driving over a curb and 20 feet of grass to get there. Our star football player at my school didn't get expelled for having marijuana on campus. He didn't even get a blemish on his record because they didn't want to ruin his future. He went to college on a full-ride sports scholarship, and then got kicked out for drinking and partying too much and missing practice before he even finished his freshman year. Struggled with social interactions growing up. Half of my life was people telling me not to take things so personally. The other half was being told to conduct myself a certain way so I don't upset people. The old just be yourself. Okay, not like that. My dog can crap in the backyard all he wants, but I do it one time and my wife loses her mind. Frick dogs, they get away with everything. The dog can hump the neighbor and nothing happens but some yelling. If I do it, suddenly the authorities need to be involved. Pretty much everything about celebrities. That stupid Cinderella flash mob where they blocked LA traffic was the kind of thing that they only got away with because they're celebrities. That's really just James Corden being an asshole as usual. He definitely got permits and everything. Also, James Corden advocating for paying late-night writers less money, just a crappy person. A lot of celebrities don't even live in LA anymore anyway. A lot of people live in Atlanta, the biggest filming spot now, or NYC. They're spreading around more due to the internet partially. I have to be exactly on time for an appointment or risk a fine and no appointment. Yet a doctor can make you wait hours, sometimes without even a thank you for waiting or sorry about the wait. Especially when you are the first damn appointment of the day. Yes, this happened to me recently and I'm like, how the frick can you be running late when I'm literally the first patient? Anything wears the epitome of George Orwell's rules for thee but not for me, e.g. COVID restrictions but not for politicians, bosses not following their own rules, police getting away with bending certain laws, etc. A whole Met Gala took place while the world battles a pandemic. Politicians who come up with dumb to asinine laws and vigorously enforce them upon all of the regular citizens, but somehow find ways to exempt themselves from being subject to the same obligations to keep and follow them as we are. Rules for thee, but not for me, as it applies to every facet of US politics, from insider trading to nepotism to tax dodging and beyond. I am so done with the ruling class. There are a lot of double standards between the genders that need to die, many of which have been touched on in this thread, but I'll share one from quite literally a few days ago. I'm a male and have a pretty good-sized beard. At a social gathering the other day, a woman complimented it and then asked, "Do you ever let people stroke it?" I replied that I did not, but then another woman spoke up with, "Well, why not? Isn't it flattering? Wouldn't you like the attention?" Not at all hostile, just blatantly, why not? To that I replied, "How would you feel if someone walked up to you and said, 'Oh, I love your hair, can I run my fingers through it?' while miming making a stroking motion?" She recoiled and said, "Of course not, that's super creepy," followed almost a second later by a round-eyed, "Oh." Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't want someone doing it to you, then why would you think it's okay for you to do it to someone else? Hey, at least she realized what she actually said. That part is skipped by a lot of people. I'm a teacher and called my wife smoking hot at a football game. My principal reprimanded me for it. I told the principal my wife calls me her smoking hot hubby to her class sometimes. She said it's different because it's perceived different when a girl says it. She's just jealous she doesn't have a smoking hot hubby telling her she's smoking hot. Good for you for complimenting your wife. My husband always does this, and I him, and it makes me feel so good. When companies say they are family-friendly but don't want you to work from home or help with childcare, mine's championing work-life balance for everyone in the country, while also dragging us back into the office for no frickin' reason. Working from home saves me an entire workday worth of commute each week. Leave me be. Corporations can take advantage of employees, but employees can't take advantage of corporations. The asymmetry of power drives me nuts. We can get fired at any moment, but are expected to give a 2 weeks notice. They worry about clock theft, but want us to just dismiss those 15 minutes after the clock every day. No lunch breaks, etc. I'm so tired of it. Tired of feeling like I owe my life to a company who would boot me out the door at a moment's notice. What's the point? The Tinder attitude of impress me and I have standards. Be funny, don't be boring. Meanwhile, the person is boring. Entertain me. Sorry I haven't graduated from clown college yet. Billionaires calling poor people lazy. I'm guilty of this one myself. I hate YouTube ads to death, but I am still watching the videos using their platform, and I am not willing to pay $10 a month, and I understand they need to somehow get compensated for all the work. The one that kills me is Hulu. I'm paying a monthly subscription, and I have to sit through ads. Nope, I refuse to watch it. But others in my household insist, so I pay for that stupid subscription and they watch it, but I refuse. I know that it makes no difference to Hulu, but if we're sitting down for a family movie night or something, I refuse to watch anything on the Hulu platform. I hate them so much for putting ads on a subscription service. I agree, but Hulu does offer an ad-free subscription for a few bucks more a month. In my opinion, they should just get rid of the ad-supported subscription tier and make it free with ads or paid with no ads. Accountability for rich people versus everyone else. As a male, I cannot take my son to a playground without getting a few strange looks. It's annoying. Is that a real thing? I do it and no one ever bats an eye. Might be an American thing. I always get, "Oh, so you're babysitting today?" I always respond, "No, I'm their father every day." People who scream about personal freedoms while voting for someone to limit someone's personal freedoms. Both sides are guilty of this. It's not really a double standard as much as it is a disagreement on what should be a freedom. What I'm saying is, if someone is going on TV demanding their constituents be left alone, don't go back inside and try to limit someone else. Men being unable to be good parents, guardians, caretakers, and the stigma of being a house husband. "Oh, letting mommy take a break today? Honey, where's your parents? Oh my god, stay away, you creep!" That's my kid. Making the wife do all the work. Why don't you get a job? I tell people on a regular basis that I want to be a stay-at-home dad, but most of the people I tell that know me and know I'm good with kids I know there's a lot of nuance, but the fact that crimes committed by the poor, like stealing someone's property, are relatively easy to prove and pursue, while crimes committed by the wealthy, like say wage theft, go almost entirely unpunished and are conveniently written in ways that make it fairly difficult to pursue. For a lot of crimes, as long as a rich guy doesn't screw up and say he's committing the crime, then it can't be proven. Really, just in general, the ability to buy your way out of the criminal justice system in America if you have money, versus being utterly crushed if you don't. It's easier for a rich guilty man to go free than a poor innocent one. Prosecutors nowadays end over 90% of their cases as a plea deal because if you're poor, the cost of waiting for justice can crush you. Sitting in jail for a month would destroy like half of America. You'd be evicted and jobless. Meanwhile, if you're rich, you can bail out and take your time. You aren't forced to take a deal just to feed your family. The notion that wives aren't abusive and that fathers are the inferior parent. Men being able to go topless but women can't. I'll support any woman that decides to go topless. You could even say I'm a big fan of the concept. I'm a girl, but I am tired of people treating dads as less than moms. Dads can be 100% better than moms, but no one will care because no mother would hurt their kids. In Canada, you are able to walk down the street freely while smoking weed. Why is it the second I'm walking down the street with a drink in my hand, that is illegal? When I traveled and arrived in Budapest, I was shocked to see that you can drink in public. Personally, if littering wasn't an issue, I see no reason why it should stay illegal. The far left. Gender roles are archaic. Also the far left. If you don't associate with your gender roles, you might be trans. It's more like, we're the party of science. Also, men can give birth. The far left leverages semantics far too much to try and win arguments. Another one from the Semantics Runbook. Antifa burned down a police station? How can an idea burn anything down? Authority figures, whether bosses or managers or cops, who hold you to the strictest word of the law, but they do whatever they want. Had a manager today come in at 8 when he hammered that everyone has to be in by 6:30, by fire or thunder. How does someone making $30,000 a year pay more taxes than a corporation making billions? Because they don't. A single person making $30K a year would pay around $1,900 in taxes without anything other than the standard deduction 12% bracket, amounting to roughly 6.3% of their income. For example, Amazon paid $2.863 billion in taxes in 2020. That's 13.4% of their net income of $21.33 billion. They say it never hurts to ask, but what are some examples where it hurts to ask? What happened to your baby? I thought you were pregnant. My mom told me one time an acquaintance of hers was pregnant. When mom saw her, she said, "Dang, you still haven't had the baby yet?" And she said, "I had the baby 6 months ago." Mom said it was one of the worst things she's ever said to someone. I make it a point to never comment on anything about pregnancy. Best case is making small talk. Worst case is horrible embarrassment, and the line is very thin. In college, some friends and I got caught smoking weed in a park by a park ranger. He was pretty cool, and it seemed like we were going to get away with a warning until one of my friends piped up and said, "You're not going to call the real cops, are you?" The dude's attitude towards us did a 180 real quick. "You see this gun? Do you see this badge? I am the real cops." Reminds me of some body cam footage I had to review for work. Our client was charged with trespassing and poaching and made a real ass of himself with a conservation agent as he yelled, "You're a deer cop? You can't arrest me. I'm not getting arrested by a deer cop." Turns out he was wrong. He was wrong about a lot of things, but that thing especially. Don't those guys have a lot more power than city police? As a server, where's that other woman you always come in with? I once walked into a restaurant with my girlfriend of 6 years, and the waiter, whom I had never met until this point, comes over and opens with a, "Hi mate, wow, she's not the one you came in with last week. Haha, just kidding. Can I get you guys any drinks?" Like, why would you say that to a stranger? I feel like he wanted you to punch him just so he could feel something. The name of someone you've known for a while. I once had a friend in college that it took nearly 6 months to figure out his name even after going out for drinks after our evening class every week. I think both of us didn't want to admit we didn't know each other's names, so we just went with Buddy for months until we recognized another student at the bar and we introduced ourselves and realized we were finally going to learn each other's name. That's a great game of chicken. Too bad it ended so evenly. Asking someone to repeat themselves a third time, and it's never anything important. The other person usually ends up screaming, "The grass is really wet over here." In the immortal words of Mitch Hedberg, "Now I'm yelling some insignificant crap like, 'That tree is far away.'" Literally what my husband and I yell at each other when we are mumbling something unimportant. Between one of my friends and a random person at the blood bank, I was donating and we were going to get lunch afterwards. Stranger, "Are you going to donate too?" Him, "I would if I could, but medically I can't." Stranger, "Why? Did you get HIV or something?" Him, "He did in fact live with HIV." Damn, but why would you ask someone you don't know if they have HIV in the first place? Probably because you'd expect them to say no, when in reality the number of people living with it is far higher than you'd guess. Any question from a supposed authority or expert that reveals a complete lack of understanding of the matter in question. A judge who once asked why the YouTube video under evidence could not be printed for him to review. There's nothing worse than the internal screaming when you realize that your work and company's reputation is now completely hostage to someone who hasn't the finest idea how what you do works. Remember the video of the representative, not sure what office, who was asking a Navy officer if expanding a naval base on Guam would cause the island to capsize? That was hilarious and terrifying. One of my friends has a sister that is battling cancer. I always want to ask how she's doing, but I fear the worst. Also, I would feel bad if I didn't ask. Just say you've been thinking about her. Your friend will tell you what they are comfortable sharing. "Hey, I've been thinking about your sister recently." Pre-COVID, at work, they would often have mobile services like blood donations parked beside our building. One day, I was walking with a woman at work who wanted to talk about things while getting some fresh air. There was a long period of silence when I couldn't think of anything to talk about, and I saw we were walking up to the edge of the building and a large mobile was parked there. So I asked her, "Have you ever done that before?" She looked at the mobile parked there and back at me. Her face turned bright red. "That is a very personal thing to ask," she said, face still bright red. "Really?" I said as we walked next to it. Then I noticed this wasn't a bloodmobile. It was a mammogram-mobile. I spent a lot of time explaining myself. I don't know why the narrative made me think you walked to the edge of the building on the roof and implied she had almost jumped off a building before. That would be too personal of a thing to ask. Are we more than friends? Reminds me of a buddy of mine who asked a girl he had been hooking up with for a few months why she didn't have a boyfriend. They did not communicate very well apparently. She thought he was her boyfriend. Mitch Hedberg, "I don't have a girlfriend. I just know a girl who'd get really mad if she heard me say that." I had a friend in elementary school who was putting on a particularly heavy dose of sunscreen. Some kid asked him why he was putting on so much. He said, "Because my mom has skin cancer," and the room just became silent. When I was a kid, my dad died from skin cancer. No one ever questioned me why I put on loads of sunscreen. On the upside, I'm over 40 and have the skin of a 20-year-old. Several, actually. I'm making a suit. It puts the sunscreen on its skin or else it gets the hose again. So, do you guys do random drug tests? I just interviewed for a new job, and my only question for them was, do they test for weed? Of course I didn't ask, but that was the only question I had. It was too painful to ask. I actually did ask a potential employer after the interview because I'm in a legal state. She said no, and that she was glad I asked, because then she was able to specify that in cases of accidents, yes, I would be tested for it, as well as making sure that I don't smoke before or on the job, because some people totally do that. Either way though, I definitely get why it's hard to ask. As a teenager, I worked in a grocery store. I saw a customer whose back was to me struggling with all of their items, so I asked, "Do you need a hand?" The man turned around and I could see he was missing a hand. There was just a stub there, and that is why he was struggling. He was a good sport and said, "Yes, it seems I do," lifting his arm missing the hand in the air. That's not so bad. Dude knew you couldn't see that they were missing it, and it's just a common phrase. I know 2 people with that same disability, and they've told me it never bothers them because someone is asking if they need help. That said, they don't speak for everyone. Okay, but I would find that hilarious. If I were missing a hand, I would do the same thing. My friend's spouse is of Asian descent. My friend is Italian. Their kids take after the spouse. My friend gets asked all the time if it was easy to adopt the kids. Even school administrators have asked, "What country were you adopted from?" to the kids themselves. My friend said people usually just walk away embarrassed after they learn that they're biological, but that one woman said, "Well, can you blame me for asking?" Yes, Patricia. Also, someone's nationality when you don't know them. My mother-in-law has an uncommon racial makeup. Way too many people who have no business asking, ask. Strangers in grocery stores walking up and asking, "What are you?" The worst might be the lady who pointed to her on the street and yelled, "Filipino?" She is not Filipino. This happens to me all the time. They can't even be bothered to ask, "What is your ancestry?" or something. It's always just, "What are you?" I don't know, a frickin' eldritch tentacle-filled trash can, Gina. What do I look like? One day, back when I was at school, I didn't have my phone on silent, and it went off during class. The teacher thought he'd make an example out of me and ask who the text was from. I replied, "My mom. She's in the hospital with cancer." He shut right up and went back to the lesson. She was being treated for stage 4 bowel cancer. She had a 25% prognosis, so naturally everyone was on edge. That was almost 15 years ago, and fortunately she is still with us, and got all clear some time ago. When you ask a woman if she's pregnant. I've been asked this twice. Both times I was wearing the same dress and was not pregnant. Not wearing that dress anymore. I had an older lady customer argue with me over whether or not I was pregnant while I was mopping. No, that would be physically impossible. "But you're glowing." It's hot. My favorite part was her response, "Well, I don't know about you, but I'm disappointed." It hurts to ask for help a lot of the time. When people respond badly, it makes it worse. Right? I have depression and have not been doing well. Friend. Homer sliding into the hedges. "Well, I don't want to keep you. I can see you've got ice cream in your cart. Great catching up. Good to see ya. Take care now." Asking paramedics, cops, or whoever to tell you about the worst thing they ever saw. I'm a trauma nurse, and I have seen some screwed up stuff. I've learned to compartmentalize, be it for the better or worse. If you ask me what's the worst thing I've ever seen, I have no problem telling you. But guess what? Now my trauma is your trauma, and I'm not sure you want that. "Hey, teacher, are you going to collect the homework you assigned yesterday?" I had a teacher who would give tons of assignments but give due dates. There were numerous instances where I tried to turn something in on one day. She told me to hold on to it, and I turned it in on the next day and got marked as late. I once had a quiz that we did in class get marked as late somehow. "Teacher, is there any homework for tonight?" For me, it's, "What did I miss while I was gone?" After clearly telling them numerous times to check the calendar on the website if you miss a day to know what you missed. The second is, "What am I supposed to be doing?" After I spent the last 10 minutes using different modalities explaining what the students should be doing. "Oh, but dude, you took so long getting to the point that by the time it was time to do it, I needed a reminder." "Hey, boss, I got an offer from another company for more money. Anyway, can you match?" Answer: "No, we will open a requisition to fill your position." New job. Someone else already accepted the position first. Be careful when using job offers as leverage. You almost immediately take yourself out of leadership's long-term plans. If I've already gone through the process of looking and the offer is good, I don't accept counteroffers from my existing company. Usually, I've already asked for the raise or promotion from my current company. If they didn't value me, then the value they see when I want to leave will be short-term. For short-term positions, this can make sense. For positions that you've been in for several years, where there are significant perks tied to your tenure/time of employment, it may make more sense to want to stay. I've seen a lot more over the past 10 years of people trying to use job offers as leverage for pay increases. It's a great tactic, but can leave you jobless pretty quick as well. I once asked for a pay increase. My boss then asked what I was on, and I told him, and he said, "Oh, you shouldn't be on that much." Why would someone want to adopt a child? This hurts every time because my parents were my fosters and then adopted me. They knew they would have a struggle adopting so late in life, and the mental and emotional and social scars my biofam left me with. They still chose to adopt me, to care for me, to love me unconditionally. Through every breakdown, every fight, and all of the troubles I had with school and bullies. They fought for me when my biofam tried to barge back into my life after I made it clear I wanted nothing to do with them. They kept me safe. So doubters, let me fire one back at you. Why would you deny foster kids a family? My family lost me because partying and boys were more important than I was. But the family I have would cut off their own arms if it meant it would keep me safe. I strive to put myself into positions to adopt and/or foster one day. Kids deserve the world, and there's a lot of older kids that need love too. I asked, boy or girl, to a woman with a pink-clad baby. I barely survived. Not in your obvious clad in a pink case, but really babies look like nothing. I know far too many women who have gotten upset because their blob of a human was mistaken for the opposite gender. Your baby doesn't look like any gender until like 3 years old if you don't dress them appropriately. When I was growing up, ages ago, nobody expected people to know the baby's sex. Most of the baby's clothes were light green or yellow, so you could use them on multiple kids regardless of sex. Asking the sex was a common thing. Don't ask someone when the baby is due unless they look like it's due tomorrow. Some people are just fat. Also, don't ask someone if they're trans. If you're right, you told them they don't pass. If you're wrong, you told them they look like the opposite sex. Either way, not something people like to have pointed out. I was at summer camp one day and the person asked my mom a question, and since they couldn't tell my gender, they asked if they had a snack. I didn't find it offensive, and I didn't realize that I looked so gender neutral. Increasingly, they, and quite frankly historically, has been used as a generic pronoun rather than a strictly gender-neutral pronoun. A lot of people will still use they even when they can tell someone's gender. Asking anything while having social anxiety. Let me just overthink and rephrase the question to myself for several hours, only to get a sure. Asking someone that you're crazy about, who isn't interested in you, if they want to go out sometime. That hurts. They say the worst thing they can say is no. I'll argue whoever came up with the phrase was handsome or pretty and has never heard a person respond with ew. True story. The wife and I were expecting twins, but we lost one prematurely. When we arrived home, we lived in an apartment building, my wife didn't want to share the news and just wanted to be left alone for a while. I thought it was a good strategy to seek out the families we were close to and give them a heads up. Please give us space. As I was informing one couple, the local Karen overheard and butted in. I reluctantly told her but asked her not to talk to my wife. Later that night, she rang the doorbell with the excuse that she was just walking by and wondered how we were. That put me in the doghouse with the wife for a few weeks. A few months later, the single dad took the child for a walk around the neighborhood. I got cornered by Karen in the lobby. Does she ask how I'm doing? It's hard being a new parent, I tell her. Can you imagine how hard it would have been if you had twins? What the frick is wrong with some people? I'm sorry you went through that. A new girl started at my old job, and we were having a slow day, so we all began to chit-chat and somehow got on the topic of house pests. Someone brought up roaches, and she asked, what do they form from? No one was sure what she was talking about, so she stated, as ants form from rotting food, what do roaches form from? This girl, late 20s, mother of 2, believed that food would rot to the point that it turned into ants, like some kind of magic metamorphosis. That blew my mind. Someone can believe that last month's meatloaf is about to become a swarm of insects. Spontaneous generation was a part of human thought up until the late Middle Ages. They used to believe that moths came from clothes, and that mice would form from grain. You have PTSD? What happened? Whenever I meet someone who asks what I do for a living, I'm on disability, I cringe, knowing that they're likely going to ask, for what? Then that a lot of people will charge forward asking if I was in the military or for an explanation of what caused the PTSD. Like, dude, it's a trauma disorder, where the person can't stop thinking about the events. Don't force me to think about that kind of stuff just to satisfy your idle curiosity. I have a child from a previous relationship. Long story short, I got cut off from all contact with this child from the time that they were about 7 months old until 18. Never saw them once due to the controlling and manipulative nature of their mother. The child came back into my life when they turned 18, and I was ecstatic. Oh my goodness, finally I can build a relationship with this person I've thought about for years. We meet. It's awkward, but we make the most of it. The child comes over for dinner and meets the other half of their family. It seems to be going okay. Over the next few months, I try to reach out, text, email, invite, etc., and I met with one-word answers. I sent them a Christmas gift, having known very little about their likes and interest, and didn't even get a thank you. The attempts to reach out dwindled, and I started to realize there just might not be anything here. Out of the blue, I get a text asking me to buy them a car. I'm absolutely dumbfounded. So was the entire thing just a long con shakedown? Come over to my house to size me up and then ask for money? I told them that it's just something I can't do right now, and the reply was, okay, doesn't hurt to ask. Actually, yes it does. There haven't been any additional communication attempts since. Asking about your partner's past. It's so intriguing, but always hurts to hear. I never get that. We all had a past before meeting our current partners. If your partner's past is unusually crazy, then I guess I can get that. But I've seen dudes flip out about completely normal stuff. Like, where did you think she learned that thing you like in bed? She's been with dudes before you. Duh. Don't ask questions you aren't sure you want the answers to. It always hurts. Every time. I always want to know the answers to everything, though. It's 42. Whoa, what happened to you? While pointing to someone's scar. Like, thanks, asshole. I was feeling cute and confident enough to wear a light sundress today. Thanks for ruining that by making me feel too ugly to wear normal people things without having my blemishes exclaimed upon by strangers. If you're in a position of significantly greater power, asking someone who cannot say no, or is conditioned to never say no, it does hurt to ask. What is he? The woman was asking about the ethnicity of my child. I pretended I didn't understand and she kept going. Unbelievable how racism can catch you by surprise. Our kids used to play together, obviously not since then. Just say, this one is human. I think in most cases it hurts the person answering. For example, what does this tattoo mean or represent? It can be very deep and sensitive stuff for the one answering. As for a question that hurts the one questioning, I guess something along the lines of, how much do you like me? Something where we have an expectation of the answer, which sadly generally turns out to be way higher than the answer provided. Generally speaking, anything about the process of a trans person's transition details. Don't ask their old name or about their body or about the traumatic transphobia they've experienced unless they are volunteering that info freely. They're not your interesting medical case and you can keep the speculation to yourself. I'm a professor. If the answer we give you is, it's in the syllabus, it hurt you to ask. You should have sought out the answer in the place we told you on day one where the answers lie. If you need clarification about something in the syllabus or assignment guidelines, be explicit in that. We also absolutely hate it when students ask for special exceptions that are explicitly prohibited by our syllabus. I'm not talking about getting reasonable accommodations due to an illness, etc. I'm talking about you not doing crap the whole semester and then asking if you can have some very special extra credit just for you that requires time and mental bandwidth on my part, which I already am short on. Even though the syllabus says explicitly that there is no extra credit. Own your crap, accept your failures, and try again next semester. What's the smallest amount of power you've seen someone wasted on? The woman in the office that was in charge of the coffee fund. She had a list of rules for using the coffee machine. One was you couldn't brew any after 1 p.m. even though we had a few people that liked coffee in the afternoon. Then she didn't buy coffee with the fund because people weren't following the rules. So someone else just bought coffee and brought it in. She didn't like that either. I think eventually the people she clashed with just brought in a new machine and did their own coffee fund. That woman was crazy. What was her reaction when the others brought in their own machine? complained to our boss that there shouldn't be 2 coffee machines. There was plenty of room in the break room for both, so I'm sure our boss just didn't give a frick, as the second one stuck around. I once helped with first aid at a half marathon, and one guy had a single job to do. He had to stand at the bottom of the road and direct the runners down one of the 2 roads. Since there were barriers across the road, it was a no-brainer and impossible to screw up in any way, shape, or form. He decided that despite the road being closed to traffic, and contrary to the very simple instructions he was given, the runners must run on the pavement. Cars equal road, therefore on foot equals pavement. He screamed at them and forced hundreds of people to squeeze along the pavement, even chasing after anyone who put a foot on the road, yelling at them. People were tripping each other up in the small space, and when I got a couple of first aid patients, I called around to see if I could get someone to stop him, because he was wasted on absolutely zero power. Eventually someone shifted him and left no replacement, not even a direction sign, and it all ran smoother than when he was there. Nobody took the wrong road, showing that he was less effective than empty space. That describes way too many people. When my cat learned how to close doors, she started trapping the other cat in the bathroom by luring him in and pulling the door closed from underneath. She also pushes doors closed on me. I'm not sure if you could call it wasted, but she is very clearly pleased with herself when she does this, tail up and purring. My dog learned how to open doors, so now if one is closed without his permission, he stomps up to it and kicks it open with an attitude. We had to change all the door handles in our house because our cat could open them. They were the lever type. The first time we realized it, we shut them in our room because we wanted them out of the way when an appliance was being delivered, yet somehow they were wandering around. I thought I must have not shut the door properly, but then it happened again. When we realized this meant she could get into the pantry whenever she wanted, we switched all levers to round knobs. A woman created a group on Facebook for one of my hobbies for organizing meetups and stuff like that. She shared it around on other groups, and naturally hundreds of others joined. Things only went downhill after that. Nobody was allowed to post except her. Seemingly every comment, mostly related to the meetup details, would set her off and cause her to lash out or ban a member completely. I got banned but can't remember the exact details. I think I responded to a post like, "I can't make it, but everyone have fun," which prompted her to berate and guilt trip me. Eventually, she went off the deep end and deleted the entire group to punish everyone. Somebody else created a new group, which everyone joined, and it is still going strong to this day. That reminds me of a corset group on Facebook that I belong to. The woman running it owned her own corset store, but she bashed anyone who showed interest in other corset shops at all. The group was technically a waist training group, but the woman would only promote her own corsets. Where it got really crazy is when people would question the length of time it would take to get corsets from her, sometimes more than 3 months, and if they asked about it, even in a direct message to her, they would either get a nasty attitude or banned from the group. Sometimes she would cancel their corset orders and refuse to refund them for questioning the status of their order. She would stalk people on their social media and harass them if they spoke out about their experiences. If people belonged to other corset groups, she would ban them. If someone made a comment about corsets in another group, even if they weren't part of that group, she would ban them. She claimed to make corsets for all body sizes, but she would post pictures of larger people wearing corsets from other companies and call these people gross or disgusting. Or she would steal images of people wearing other brands and claim they were her brand of corsets. If you called her out on this, you would get banned. Then it came out that the reason the corsets took so long to be delivered was because they were not made to order, like the page owner claimed. They were bulk ordered from Pakistan. I think it was Pakistan, and were shipped to her so that she could remove the original tags and replace them with her own brand tags. The corsets were low quality with rusty steel bonding and poor stitching, and she was getting them for about $20 each and selling them for closer to $150 to $200 each. They took so long because she would wait until she had enough orders to qualify for a bulk discount from the overseas store. When people called her about this, not only were they getting insta-banned, she would message them and call them racist and sexist. The worst thing I saw from her, though, was when someone did a review comparing her corset to a different brand corset and why the other brand was superior. She called the reviewer a liar, shamed the reviewer for the lack of curves, and then left explicit instructions on how the reviewer could slit their wrists. Me as a fire marshal at summer camp. Your bucket wasn't filled, there was gonna be some crap. And they're all going to be really sorry once you set the fires. Insert evil laughter. PowerPoint is boring. The canteen lady at my old school. The deputy principal blamed the students for littering what we called juices, which are like ice blocks around the school. But what would you know? It was the canteen lady who me and my friend found scattering the wrappers around the school and claiming it was the students. Makes me laugh to this day. But why? You'd be surprised how many school employees freaking despise children. Every gaming clan I've ever been in. The really fun ones were when the leader would be unable to make it to that night's festivities and would temporarily mod someone else. Almost every time, instant powermonger. Next day, what in the heck did you do? And removal. Like they forgot it was temporary. From my experience, most guild leaders are actually pretty chill. It's always one of the mods that thinks he's running the corporation. Our guild leader used to teach, and he said that his experience dealing with unruly children has helped him a great deal even when handling adults. Honestly, dude is a champion for keeping everything together when people are being belligerent idiots. I forget the circumstances, but once my wife and I ended up at a busy theme park during their Halloween festival with an entire booklet of front-of-the-line passes. I'm talking 150 of the suckers, effectively infinite rides on a packed weekend. We rode so many roller coasters in a row that I was sick as a dog midway through the night. We still planned to enjoy the park, scare zones and food and such, but no longer had need of the blessed booklet. So we strolled through the festivities, arm in arm, like amusement park gods, judging other couples based on their costumes and demeanor, carefully deciding whom we should bestow a night of infinite rides. This is unexpectedly wholesome. Years ago, while driving the US Gulf Coast from Texas to Florida, I was passing through Pensacola, Florida, when I became confused about which turn I needed to take. I pulled just off the highway onto the edge of a massive empty parking lot and pulled out my large map. The nearest building was nearly a quarter of a mile away, and I was just on the edge of this gigantic, unfenced parking lot. A rent-a-cop drove all the way from the building in a golf cart, got out and shouted at me, "No parking! This is a private lot. You can't park here." I'm sitting there in a car with California tags, the engine running and a map spread out on my lap, and this idiot is telling me I can't park there. He looked like Eric Cartman, demanding that everyone respect my authority. I ignored him until I found the road I wanted to drive off. I don't think he's going to get that promotion to rent a detective. Maybe if he solves that big case involving the Arizona Matchbook Company. Classroom monitor in grade school. Damn it, Cartman. Handing out sodas from a cooler ice chest. He decided that it was up to him to choose what flavor people received, because it wasn't self-serve. When the pettiness of this was brought up, he decided this authority was the hill he would die on. It became quite the thing. This is pretty hilarious. You, sir, look like a root drink type of man. Here you go. Actually, if I could get the Sprite, that'd be... I said, you look like a root drink sort of guy. This one woman almost everyone hated was also the newest and lowest level employee at a place I used to work. When we got another employee that had literally the same job, the woman everyone hated took it upon herself to boss the new employee around. Out of 25 employees, I was number 3, and I finally pulled the very new woman aside and told her that she didn't have to take that crap, and that she was doing fine. My department has a pretty good practice of guiding the new guy through the political landscape. See that guy? Don't listen to a word he says. That guy over there is just a peen. Don't take anything he says to heart. Watch what you say around this guy or you'll get in trouble. And finally, don't take advice from anybody. We're all full of crap. I loved it when one of the lower level employees was introducing a new lady to everyone. This is Rhett. He can come across as an asshole, but he really isn't. He just doesn't understand subtlety at all. Tell him exactly what you need and when you need it, and he'll be your best friend. It was nice knowing I worked with someone who knew me so well. In the UK, about 10 years ago, I'm filling my car up at a petrol station when suddenly the pump stops. I can't get the attention of the cashier from the pump who is inside the station. No other choice, so I head into the station and join a fairly long queue. I eventually get to the cashier. Me, I think there's something up with pump number 3. It just stopped working. Cashier, it didn't just stop working, I turned it off. Looks at me like she's chewing a wasp. Me, okay, why did you turn it off? Cashier, you know why. Me totally confused. I really don't know why. Can you just explain? Cashier shouting to get attention. You were on your phone! Note, there were a lot of scare stories about mobile phones causing fires in petrol stations at the time. Me totally confused. I wasn't on my phone. I think you're confused. Cashier, well, your friend was on his phone. Me, well, there we go. I wasn't on my phone and I didn't know my passenger was on his phone. Plus, he's inside the car, so there really wasn't a risk. Cashier interrupts. It is a risk and you know it. Being shouted at by a cashier continues, and it becomes clear she's on a power trip. Me, okay, can you just turn the pump back on, please? No, I have to reset it, and you have to pay for what you've already taken. Me, okay, and I hand over the money. Cashier, I don't have change for that. I presume this was bollocks, and that she was clearly looking to make my life as problematic as possible. Me, well, I wanted to put this amount in. How about I go continue filling up the car and come back and pay you this amount? Cashier very reluctantly agrees. I get back to the car and open the door to talk to the passenger who has been watching all of this and asks, what the heck is going on? I explain about the crazy cashier and ask him to just put the phone away for her. The cashier clearly keeps me waiting a minute or two before turning the pump on, enjoying the power trip. Now, because I'm pretty wound up at this point, and maths isn't my greatest skill, I had to memorize the pump reading, as it was reset to 0 before it restarted. It was on something like PS 1347, and I needed to do some mental arithmetic to work out how much to put in to hit PS 20. All done, I thought. I go back into the shop, queue up again, get to the cashier, and hand her my 20 when she says this isn't the right amount. Me, I had to work it out, which wasn't easy given the situation. Cashier, well, I don't know who taught you how to do math, but you're short 1 PS. Slightly offended, I've also no more money and no means of paying. I had to go back to my car and ask my passenger friend for PS1. I queue up again, third time, to pay the lady her 1 PS. Here's your PS1. By the way, this has all been hugely unnecessarily difficult. Well, maybe if you weren't using your phones while filling up. Me as I'm walking out, and I admit shouting somewhat, I wasn't on my phone, and maybe if you weren't such a little Hitler, this would have been over and done with 20 minutes ago. This got a laugh from another person in the shop, but man, I was furious about the whole thing. I'd have called the corporate line after an interaction like that. Also, if she wasn't a complete idiot, she would have locked it at the price difference to get you to PS20. So in my opinion, the PS1 is on her. When I was in my late teens, I got a job at the arcade inside my local mall. At first, I was so stoked because I was an avid arcade junkie and I thought it would end up being the most awesome place to work. Sadly, it was absolute misery due to the horrible human being that was the store manager. This woman was so absolutely bitter with her life that she made up for it by making life miserable for the young people who worked there. She was mean, cranky, condescending, and would do anything to make sure you understood it was her way or the highway. She'd worked for the arcade company for over 15 years, and I guess that is all she had. One of the things she did was assign every worker a set of chores, which she called her little chore list, as if we were her kids. These chores often consisted of busy work, usually things that didn't need to be done, but would take up the entire shift so that you couldn't ever just chill if it got slow. Her philosophy was, if you're on the clock, you have to be working even if the work is pointless. The straw that broke the camel's back, with me, was when one of my chores on the chore list was cleaning the very top of the 15-foot glass windows. I remember asking her why she felt I should get on a ladder and risk falling just to clean windows that literally never get dirty because nobody is tall enough to reach that height. She assured me it was dirty, and she would know if I didn't do the chore. She always accused us of not doing the chores that she'd assigned or half-assing them. It was absolute insanity. We all did our crap pretty much without fail. Anyway, that night I pulled the 15-foot ladder out of the storage room and started cleaning the very top of those windows. When I got to the very back corner of the store, there were 2 sets of small handprints planted there. This crazy psycho had taken the ladder out at some point during the day and literally climbed up 15 feet to leave handprints so that she could 100% confirm if the windows had been cleaned. I could not believe that level of power-hungry pettiness. I called her ass out on it over the phone immediately. At first, she tried to deny it, and then said, "Well, I guess you actually do all your chores after all," and gave me a snark little chuckle over the phone. To which I replied, "Well, I guess I'm just gonna quit then. Have a nice life," and I just left. There was nobody at the store but me, so I'm sure she had to leave whatever she was doing at home to close that night. I remember going to that arcade a few years later and she was still there. Her philosophy was, if you're on the clock, you have to be working even if the work is pointless. Oh man, I've had quite a few supervisors myself who shared that same philosophy. It made no sense to me to keep us busy just for the sake of it, when there was really nothing to do. They should have let us rest, so that when we got slammed with lots of customers, we wouldn't be so tired and worn out. If you can lean, you can clean. That was one of my former boss's favorite sayings. Yes, but if I've already cleaned every surface twice, no, clean them again. Just look busy. Social media influencers. Yes, a young couple brought a puppy into the store where I work. Only service animals are permitted. Manager did the standard service dog questioning and the girl holding the puppy said it wasn't a service animal. Manager asked her to take the puppy out, apologetically. The guy with the girl loses his crap, starts arguing and getting loud and making a scene. His tantrum wasn't having the effect he wanted. Everyone is pretty much laughing at him, and he spirals into this "don't you know who I am" tirade. "I have 2 million followers, bish. What do you have? You ain't got crap." I was in awe of his bizarre social currency leverage meltdown. Damn, I guess I only have the ability to tell you to leave. I suppose I can live with that. I'm a video engineer at a TV station. One of our producers got her husband hired as my assistant. He was menacing. He would barge into my office and try to catch me doing something wrong. He kept telling me he was going to take my job. He was previously unemployed for years. I had a degree and 10 years at the station. He was so confident that he was going to take my job. The last straw was him screaming at me in the hall. He didn't last 2 weeks. His wife was mortified. That sounds like a nightmare. Sounds like it's obvious why he was previously unemployed. I once taught English in an international school in Egypt. The school was run by an army general in the Egyptian government and was pretty poorly mismanaged. We had a guy there who was responsible for some general maintenance around the school, but happened to have his office in the same room as the copy machine. Every day, teachers would bring their papers to his room to copy them for class, and every day the man would tell us to leave it on his desk, where there'd be a pile of teachers' copies needing to be made. He wanted to make the copies himself. It was not technically his job, but the machine was in his office, and by forcing people to copy through him, he seemed to keep some level of necessary status at the school. Copies would always be late, sometimes not being available until the next day. Just depended on how the dude felt at the moment. So he gave himself another work responsibility on his own accord and then didn't even bother doing it right? Yeah, another commenter mentioned this. But in Egyptian culture, there's a huge emphasis on social capital and power. Taking the responsibility away from us seemed to give him some sense of power, and making us wait for our copies gave him even more. He made us dependent on him. Found his own job security, I guess. When my husband and I were getting married, we had to go to City Hall to submit the legal paperwork. We were living in a country where we were both conversational speakers in the language. The secretary of the official that we had to meet asked me what my marital status was. I explained I've never been married. She repeated the question. I translated single from English. She continued to be displeased and repeated the same question. I explained to her that if there was a specific word to describe a single female in this language, I didn't know it, citing that it's not our first language. We went in circles like this for at least 3 minutes. She berated us, saying that we shouldn't be getting married in that country if we didn't know the right words. Eventually, she told me the word I should have been using. She turned to my husband and asked his marital status. He used the masculine form of the word that she just told me to use. It was not the correct word. She just shook her head, corrected him, and stamped our documents. We went in to see the official, who looked over the paperwork that we had just filled out, signed it, and sent us on our way without any further issues. This is the worst. Had a similarly frustrating experience, although nothing as serious as marriage. Spent the weekend hiking in the mountains with some friends. All foreigners with varying levels of skill, but everyone was conversational, and stopped by a public bath before the long drive home. So we walk up to the counter and ask for 3 tickets for the public bath, and the old lady says, "No public bath." So we're confused, because everyone is holding towels and people are clearly going into a public bath. So the bravest of us speaks up and asks for 3 tickets for the hot springs. Guess what? No hot springs, the lady says, getting more exasperated. Someone else clarifies, 3 tickets for the outdoor hot springs. Still no luck. This lady was just being an asshole, but we finally figured out she wanted us to ask for 3 bathing tickets. Unsurprisingly, it was a terribly dirty, crowded facility that was only in business because of its convenient location for hikers. The first and only time I've made ass-to-ass contact in a public space, and hopefully the last. Ugh, how annoying. I swear some people just like to be difficult for no reason. As someone who speaks a few languages badly, I found that most native speakers are so excited that you're trying that they look past the incorrect vocabulary and wonky grammar. But some people just like to crap on your day. My friend, who has way better vocabulary and grammar than me in this language, was once trying to buy bread at a bakery after a long day of classes and asked for the bread to be sliced into slices. The problem is, this language has a specific word for slices of, let's say, ham or cheese, and a different word specifically for slices of bread, for some reason. He used the wrong one, and the lady said, "I can't cut it into wrong slices for you." And he asked, "Oh, is the machine broken?" And she said, "No, I can cut it into the correct slices for you," with a douchey smile. Some people, man. Also, the secretary of this official didn't have a leg to stand on because all our paperwork and documents were in order, so it's not like she could have turned us away. Of course, we realized this after we left. She must have just loved to see foreigners squirm. It was not uncommon for foreigners to get married in this city. And we weren't even foreigners. We were citizens by birth, but had grown up in the US, so our native language wasn't as good as it could have been. The fat, greasy gamer chud that gets promoted to assistant manager of a GameStop. No joke, I had a GameStop store I frequented for years, and the only person that worked there that I hated was this obnoxious walking stereotype. When the PS4 Pro came out, I went to trade in my regular PS4 with a controller. It worked perfectly and had some minor wear. This living, gasping crap stain proceeds to try and screw me on my trade-in, and say that I can't have the controller that comes with the Pro because mine is damaged, and he needs a controller with the system trade-in, so he was going to open the Pro I was buying to keep the controller. I flipped my crap on this disgusting crap bag. He canceled my sale, and banned me from the store, and said he could because he was the manager on duty. I called the corporate number to complain, and I was later informed that he had literally been promoted that day, and I was the 3rd complaint call they got about him, in about a 4-hour span. Needless to say, he was fired almost instantly. It's kinda sad when the gross guy that works at the game store has to flex like that, because people like him clearly have no control in any other aspect of their lives. What's worse is he probably thought his asshole bullcrap was perfectly reasonable, and probably got away with it on several unsuspecting customers before he was fired. What is something common that has never happened to you? I'm almost 29 and I've never been stung by a bee, wasp, hornet, etc. Lucky, I made it to 3 years old and a wasp said, "Damn, that's a happy kid. Let's change that." Stings me. I was minding my own business in my stroller at Hershey Park too. I can relate. My earliest memory is getting stung on the back of the neck by a wasp while I was sitting on my tricycle. Been scared of them ever since. I've never been to a funeral. Oh, they're a riot. You gotta try them. Yeah, just wait for the vampire to jump out of the coffin and yell, "Surprise!" I've never been invited to a wedding. Everyone always tells me about how I'm so lucky to not go to weddings because of how much they end up spending to attend them, but I'd like to experience it at least once in my life. Apparently, I'm not close enough to anyone to be invited. During COVID, a lot of my friends got married in small ceremonies. Understandable, but I wish that I got more chances to attend bigger weddings, because they seem fun. My family is from a culture where weddings are big 100+ invite everyone affairs, so I'd love to participate in more of those. Where I'm from, 250 people attending your wedding is considered to be on the smaller side. I don't know if it's common, but a friend expressed surprise when I told him I had never ever seen hail in person. I know of it, of course, and I've seen videos, but I've never experienced it myself. I remember seeing it 5 days after buying my first new car, when it fell on and dented my first new car. Did not even have the permanent license plates, but I had hail damage. Common here in Texas. Some people will even wait for the hail sale, brand new cars with hail damage sold at pretty big discounts. 24 years old and never broken a bone or had any fractures. 41 years old checking in here, nothing has broken yet. Let's keep it that way. Never been fired from a job, knock on wood. The only time I got fired was by a new manager, first week. They didn't last a month and I got hired back. I had that happen to me when I was a teen. The lady who was subbing for the manager for a day fired me. I complained to the real manager when he got back and I got rehired the next day. Being called for jury duty. I am 40 and my dad and my sister have both been called, but not me. It seems there's two types of jury duty notices. There are people like you who either never receive one or rarely receive one. Then there's people like me who receives a jury duty notice every time I'm eligible. In my city, they're allowed to call you once a year. Guess who's sitting in a courthouse right now for my annual jury duty? I have never won an award for anything ever. In elementary school, literally every single person in my class won an award for something except for me. I have never been an employee of the month. I have never been honorably mentioned for anything. While in the service, the only ribbons I received were the ribbons the rest of my unit received. While playing sports, the only trophies I ever received were the ones the rest of my teams received. Now at my job, I have never had any accolades whatsoever. In fact, when I was in kindergarten, our teacher made a promise to us that if every child lost a tooth, we would get an ice cream party. Best efforts aside, I never lost a tooth in kindergarten, and we didn't have a damn ice cream party because of me. I've never been pulled over or given a ticket. I bragged about this a couple of months ago, then got a ticket a week later. Careful out there, man. I got a $40 speeding ticket a few months ago, and my boyfriend teased me for weeks, saying that he was the better driver and would never get a ticket. Last month, he got a $325 ticket in the mail after getting caught on a red light camera. I've never gotten a nosebleed, ever. When I was in school, I got it 12 times a month. I was operated on and turns out a growing bone in the nose had pressed against a nerve. Alive because of modern science. Would have died for such a simple reason in ancient times. That's an interesting story. I have chronic nosebleeds. Sometimes I'll only get one in a month, and sometimes I'll get 6 in a week. Been like this for as long as I can remember. I saw a doctor once about it when I had one that took an unusual amount of time to clot, and they said it's not terribly unusual in people my age, around 19 at the time. But not much has changed since then. Maybe I'll bring it up at my next annual, just in case. I've never had to go to the hospital. I go every day. I work there. Never had a cavity. My dentist told me different people have different kinds of bacteria prevalent in their mouths. Some have bacteria that tends to form cavities. Some have bacteria that tends to present gum disease, for instance. I'm in the latter category, and have also never had a cavity. So, yay? I've never had a cavity despite not taking care of my teeth super well for a couple of years. On the flip side, even now that I do take care of my teeth diligently, my breath stinks super easily. Like I need to use mouthwash or have eaten/drank water in the last 30 minutes, or it starts to get bad. I have never experienced any natural disaster or ever had a snowball fight. As someone from Kansas, I would highly recommend against a snowball fight during a tornado. No, they're so cool! You can hit yourself if the angle is right. I am in my 40s and have never had anyone invite me out for drinks. If by any chance you live around Puget Sound, I'm going wine tasting at 3 p.m. today. You are invited. Oh, how I wish. Would take quite a bit of convincing to get the wife to cross the country for any reason, though. I have never had strep throat. Just swallow a handful of razor blades and needles. Same effect. Have you ever thrown up with strep? The pain was so bad I just puked again. I've never fainted. Oh, it's the worst. Such a horrible feeling. I've only actually fainted twice, but I felt like I was going to way more times. I've never met any of these hot single women in my area. That seems so abundant. Married 36 years. I'm almost the only person I know that's never been divorced. My wife has been divorced 3 times. This sounds like an immovable object / unstoppable force situation. Hope your streak wins out over your wife's. I've never caught a fish. We would spend hours a day fishing as a kid in summer, and for some reason I never caught one. As an adult, people have taken me fishing, determined to help me catch a fish. Nothing. I'm 40. It will never happen. The real fish were the friends that you made along the way? Feeling loved by someone other than your family. There, sending a hug. Never met a stray kitten that was begging for me to take it home. All of the strays I see are on their way to somewhere important. I count this as unlucky. My wife saved one a few months ago from certain death. The best cat and first we ever had. Brain freeze from ice cream, etc. I have no idea what y'all are talking about. I don't get brain freezes, I get throat freezes, and they hurt. Anytime anyone has ever said brain freeze, I just assumed they meant the same thing as what I felt, and it was a misnomer. I only recently discovered people actually feel a brain freeze in their head. I never experienced that. Just those damn throat freezes. Same here. I always wondered why people called it brain freeze when it's clearly in your throat. I guess I just don't get brain freeze. Despite living in Scotland and being a white heterosexual male, I've never played a round of golf. Same. I asked a few people and they said they did before and hated it. I suppose I could go alone and probably will at some point, just because. I never learned how to drive. I'm 30. 32 and same. I legally can't due to how bad my eyes are. Same. I'm 23 and I can't either because I'm blind in one eye. And I can't see my hand in front of my face with the other without my glasses. I only cross streets at stoplights because I can't see well enough to see a driver motioning me across. I never got a tattoo. Same. I think tattoos on other people are cool, but I've never been interested in getting one myself. Winning a Cards Against Humanity game. Look at you with enough friends to actually play. 39 and have never had any children. I'm a 35-year-old woman with no kids. I have never wanted children, nor do I plan on having them. It's okay if you don't have them. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. People don't understand why I don't want them. Personal choice, people, and no, finding the right guy won't make me want them. My right guy will feel the same as me. Yes, thank you. My mom always tries to scare me. She says no one will want to marry me if I don't want kids. Well, I don't want to marry someone that does want kids either. Never rented a home or had a roommate. Roommates can either be life-changing or just ugh. So really, maybe you're winning in this case. It might have been fun, or as you pointed out, might not have, in college, but it was like a 15-minute commute. Would have made no sense for me to pay for a dorm. Now I'm way too old and set in my ways for that. I'm 57 and nobody has ever told me that they are LGBTQ. I have some gay and lesbian friends, but I only know it because somebody else told me. I'm a grizzly, old redneck looking person, so maybe they think I'd be hateful. I don't think most people outright announce it unless they're just coming out. I've had friends tell me they were LGBTQ when they were just coming out, but people I've met that were already out, I only found out because they offhandedly mentioned their same-sex partner. Sleep paralysis. I am thankful and I hope I will never experience that. It's the worst. The first time it's terrifying. For me, the following times, since I knew what it was, I just found it fascinating. Like I kinda just laid there and took in the experience as such an odd feeling. I wasn't scared at all the following times. I was like, this will pass and it will be fine. But this is wild right now. Had a relationship? I don't understand how they're so common. It's hard to imagine having one person who you like so much that you want them around all the time and make you happier and make your life better. That feels so foreign to me. Because that's generally not how life works. Even people that like each other get sick of each other. You have to think of it as a partnership. Some days my wife is going to be an idiot, and other days it will be me. You can't hold grudges, and you need to be empathetic and understanding with people. Happiness isn't the default emotion. I think a lot of people get confused by this, thinking they should be happy all the time. Also, happiness is majority internal, so it shouldn't be coming from other people for the most part. Didn't get COVID. My girlfriend got it and we isolated together. My boss got it and I didn't, and I worked in retail during that time. Did you get tested for the antibodies? My dad never got sick from COVID, but he has tested positive for the antibodies. This was last year before there were any vaccinations as well. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Not COVID, we tested, but my husband was recently sick with a cold, stuck in bed for a few days. I felt like my allergies were worse for a few days, but otherwise that was it. If he hadn't been actively sick, I'd have no idea that I had an infection. People's immune systems react differently, quite often. COVID cases are expected to be underreported simply because so many people were asymptomatic or close to it. I have never seen the ocean. As someone who grew up in Florida, I've kind of taken the ocean for granted, especially now that I live in the Midwest and have met a concerning number of people who have never seen anything other than the Great Lakes. I never had a pen explode or leak in my hand. Are you kidding me? I feel like half the pens I've ever used have stained my crap. I've never had to serve on jury. I'm terrified of the responsibility you may hold in deciding a stranger's fate, so knock on wood I can keep this streak up. Never really had the pleasant surprise of finding forgotten money laying around the house. I just always know where stuff is. Happens to my friends all the time though. I am 45, and I've never changed a baby's diaper, and hopefully never will. Well, hopefully you'll never have to change your parents' diapers. Spent a year changing grandma's diapers, and I would have loved to be changing a baby diaper instead. I'm 25, and I've never gone on a date with anyone. 26, and have also never been on a date. Funny thing is, I have some relationship experience, just never gone out for coffee or a movie or whatever with anyone. Early 40s, never seen a Star Wars movie. Here's some money, go see a Star War. It's one Star War, what could it cost, $10? I never learned how to swim. I can't float. Never been divorced. Married only once, widowed 24 years ago, and never remarried. Me too. My husband died young. I've been widowed 25 years. I think once was enough. I have never punched anybody, nor got punched by anybody. Never participated in a fight of any sort, not even as a kid or teenager. 47-year-old, fairly muscular and otherwise normal male. Never been to Disney. Side note, I live in Florida. I live in Indiana, and I've never personally seen a tornado. They happen in my area at least a couple times a year. I even lived in a mobile home for a couple years. Never had chickenpox. Get the vaccine. I caught it at 19 on a trip to Europe. Thought I had a dreadful STI. I've never had the flu. I've never had the flu, but always seem to get 2 to 3 colds a year. But since COVID and the fact that I wear a mask anywhere, I haven't gotten a cold since 2019. So I guess the masks work. I'll probably be wearing a mask in stores even after COVID goes away. It's nice being able to breathe. Having a relationship, at least one that lasts more than a month. I just can't seem to make it stick. I've quit trying as hard since COVID, but I wish I could just make something stick. 42 female, never been married. Haven't been divorced either, so there's that. Getting a lot of body hair on my chest. Ultimately, I'm extremely happy with the lack of that. I wish I didn't have the unwanted hair that I have. I'm a girl too, so it gets really annoying trying to get rid of it all. I'm 18 and I have never tried Pepsi, Coca-Cola, or any soft drink. Never had a drink. Yes, I'm an adult way above 21, just never got the appeal. I hear water's good for you. For reference, I am 21 years old. I'll make a list as I can't decide. 1. Never been stung by a bee. 2. Never set foot on a plane. 3. Never actually been on vacation. The closest thing was class trips. 4. No broken bones as far as I'm aware. 5. I have hophophobia, so I've never kissed anyone. 6. Due to lack of interest, I've never been in a romantic relationship. 7. I have never been wasted. 8. Never drove a car that was part of an accident. I did experience one when I was 2 though, and 2 bus accidents over the last couple years. 9. I don't think I've ever seen any sort of natural disaster in person, though in my case that's not likely to happen anyway. Germany's usually pretty tame. That's all I can think of right now anyway. I have never had my parents give me money. Never got field trip money, never got bookstore money, and no allowance growing up. No help along the way. I was invited to a concert tomorrow, my first since 2019. I have to skip it because I have no funds after bills. Sure wish I could call mom or dad and ask for $100 for, never being there. My mom's grandparents died years ago. She got $200,000. Mine just passed. Trust we're estranged, but didn't see any of it. This is deserving of more attention. I want you to attend that concert. Mid-30s, grew up in a rural area and spent a big chunk of my life wandering around in all sorts of woodlands and fields. Never had to remove a tick. Some of my friends got them almost daily. I've never had my period. I'm a guy, so that's probably the reason. I've never had a McRib. You're not missing anything. Every year when I get it, I'm disgusted and ask why did I spend money on such fake crap? I've never eaten a Twinkie. I've never seen a Twinkie. Never had a stranger offer me candy or toys. I grew up with my parents warning me about them all the time. I've never had a bedroom to myself. As the eldest child, at one point shared a room with my parents in a 1-bedroom apartment. My little brother and sisters eventually arrived, and even though we lived in a 2-bedroom house, I shared a room with my 3 siblings. Then my parents finally got their first home with 3 bedrooms, which I shared with my brother. Moved out at 21 only to have my girlfriend turned wife share a room with me. Never been offered drugs by a stranger, as I was told would happen regularly as a child. I have never burped. I have never been able to burp no matter what I eat or drink. A friendship that's not a pity friendship. I have pushed hard to fix my miserable life. Now I think I'll just migrate to start anew. Both are lonely, but the new one will have better mountains. I'm 20 years old and I've never blacked out. I was 12 when I accidentally hit my head to the door. My sight turned black for about 5 to 10 seconds. Never felt anything at that moment, but feels like crap hours later. One of the worst days of my life. Never had an antibiotic. I'm in the US and just turned 40. Sure, maybe I had one as a baby or when I ate meat. I've only had one prescription in my life and never took it. Vicodin for wisdom teeth removal. Didn't think not having an antibiotic was so uncommon. Depending on how old you are, you might have had antibiotic ointment put on your eyes when you were born. It's standard in some countries to do that. 35 years old and I've never seen Avatar. Blue People Avatar or Blue Arrow Avatar? Best way to put it, I've heard. Having COVID. I'm British, so completely expecting it on our horrible little plague island. Never had braces. My teeth grew in straight. However, as I get older, I notice there's some parts getting a tiny bit crooked, likely due to grinding my teeth, so I'm thinking of getting Invisalign before it gets worse. I'm 18 and I've never even gotten close to any sort of romantic situation ever. I mean, it makes sense considering I'm gay in a homophobic country and all, but it still hurts when all your friends are in happy relationships and you're all alone. Where are you from? I wish you luck, brother. You deserve love and happiness just as much as anybody else. I'm from Sri Lanka. Luckily, I'm hoping to move to Australia in a few months, but even then I'll have to come out to my parents, and given what I know about them, it's probably not going to go over well. What are rich people problems like? My rich friend has no kids, so he's trying to figure out how to spend all his money before he dies so it doesn't go to some cousins he doesn't like. If I just mention something I like, he'll buy it for me immediately. It's ridiculous. Your friend kind of sounds like Bilbo. Damn those Saxville Bagginses. Figuring out how to give your kids everything they want without turning them into spoiled brats who are messed up for life. They want your time and attention more than anything else. It's really important before 10 years of age. Substituting toys, video games, and outside activities with other people rather than your parents is not constructive at all. No, it's a lie. Just give them a PS5 and you will acquire inner peace. I used to work in fine art shipping, and rich people would constantly call and ask if we could remind them which house we'd ship their expensive artwork to. They would have trouble remembering. And just to verify, that is not my billing address either, correct? Ah, wait, maybe the Platinum MasterCard is addressed to the house in the Hamptons. Okay, I'm actually going to answer the question seriously. For context, I was born in a wealthy family, not obscenely rich, but well off. I'm perfectly aware that these problems are frivolous compared to what others have to go through, and I don't feel sorry for myself at all, but you asked, so here it goes. 1. Never really being sure whether your partner actually loves you or tolerates you because your money makes their life easier at times. 2. Having all your accomplishments invalidated by the fact that you have money. I'm the first to recognize that I haven't had to face most of the barriers that others had, and that I'm benefiting from incredible privilege. I'm eternally grateful for that. That said, I still think I have at least a bit of merit in the things I've done. I've known other people born into wealth who haven't done crap with their lives because they take everything for granted and think success is owed to them. Alternatively, having all your everyday life problems brushed away. For example, I understand that suffering from mental health issues is a lot easier when you can afford therapy, but it's still hard at times, and money doesn't magically make those go away overnight. As a woman, it can make it hard to navigate relationships because a lot of men still identify with the breadwinner role. The general guilt that comes with recognizing your privilege. I see a lot of my friends struggle with crippling debt and financial issues. I know I'm not personally responsible for this, and there isn't much I can do beyond helping out here and there, but it's very guilt-inducing to see how much the system is rigged against them, while simultaneously making it easier for me. That's it for my rich person problems. I genuinely appreciate your response. Not everyone is taking the question seriously, and by nature, kind of ragging on those in your position. I am not in your social class, but I can tell that you're a thoughtful human whose problems are as real as anyone else's. My boss is a pretty significantly wealthy guy, and his family in general is very wealthy. And looking in from the outside when he's in his venue drinking with people, there's definitely a problem of people taking advantage of being your friend for freebies and privilege over your staff. Cannot imagine going through life with that many fake people trying to get something. I have this problem, but from the opposite role. My friend is, I would not say rich, much better off than me. We like a lot of the same crap, so he's always asking me to go places with him. He'll ask me to go to music festivals with him, and I'll just say, nah, I can't afford the tickets. And he'll instantly respond with, dude, I got you, man. And then I feel bad accepting because I feel like I'm taking advantage of him. Sometimes I wish he'd just take the hint, lol. He's like my best friend, and I'm the godfather of his son, but it's tough not feeling that way. While I was going to college, my childhood best friend would ask me to go do stuff with him. Out to drinks, laser tag, stuff like that. Of course, my broke college student self couldn't afford any of it. He always said he'd pay for it, and added, I can always make more money, I can't make more friends so easily. I'll bet your friend feels the same way. He'd rather pay the extra money to have you there with him, sharing the experience. This is from a conversation I had with a guy I met on vacation. He had grown up fabulously rich, but he never really saw his parents that much, especially when he was a kid, as they were both high-achieving workaholics. Instead, he had a maid that had been there for as long as he could remember, put him to bed at night, breakfast in the morning, etc. So in his mind, he had two moms. The one that he met for dinner a few days a week demanded he brushed his hair and put on presentable clothes. And his real mom, the one that was always there, actually took care of him. When he was 5 years old, the maid quit. She had gotten a better job somewhere else and was looking forward to spending more time with her actual kids, and everybody was happy for her. Everybody smiled and told him to be happy she was moving on to something better, as she hugged him goodbye and happily walked out forever. He lost his real mom, and he wasn't even allowed to feel bad about it. I met this guy when he was 27, and he was still struggling with it. My partner grew up with a nanny. She said she remembers that when she fell and got hurt, she would run to the nanny for comfort. Also, when she said, "My mom cooked," she had to catch herself and say, my mom told the cook to make, but then when her mom had guests over, the cook would make all the food, but her mom would tell the guests that she cooked it. All your poor relatives move close to you and start asking you for things and money. I have a very wealthy friend, and seeing this firsthand blew my mind. I thought the moochers would be subtle, or ask for small things, or maybe just hang around in hopes of getting some scraps, jackal style. No. Everyone from siblings down to the ex-boyfriend of a second cousin will just straight up demand that he buy them a vacation home or pay for their $80,000 around-the-world cruise, both real examples, and when he inevitably says no, they go scorched earth policy on social media and talk about how selfish he is and how he disowns his own family for money, and then a month later they are back begging on their doorstep. It's exhausting, and I'm just watching from the outside. This is probably why people like Aaron Rodgers do not speak to their families anymore. Pablo Escobar's problem with rats eating his stacks of money faster than he could deposit them would be a good poster child for this. Or that he spent $2,500 on rubber bands to bundle his money per month. This is my favorite factoid to use to explain wealth and the cartels, and a bunch of other stuff to my kids, except I replaced Coke with Legos and Pablo Escobar with Alabama football. Lifestyle creep. The more money they earn, the more they spend, and it never really feels like they're truly rich. On a similar note, if you have a stressful and demanding job that pays a lot, it's exceedingly hard to walk away from mental health. I have friends who quit their jobs every 6 to 9 months because they don't like the hours or their boss. But I have other friends that grind 75-hour weeks because they can't let go of $300K per year. How do the 75-hour guys actually fit a life in between that kind of work? Proper allocation of investment assets and tax planning are actually things you need to think about a lot, or hire someone else to think about, which in itself is something to think about. I lost you after the first 3 words. The other day, a client of my dad's wrote a $3K check for my medical bills. I've been sick for a while, and it came up in some casual conversation. The client recommended a place for medical testing. We went, got a consultation, but the price was too high to justify without insurance coverage. The client calls the place, sees we haven't done the tests yet, and he writes my dad a check for the full amount. $3K doesn't sound like a lot compared to some of these stories, but this may have changed the course of my life. His justification: I have more money than I can ever spend. I have a rich friend who just offered to cover all of my bills to get treatment for my chronic illness. It's nothing to him, but it will literally save my life. It's insane. Feeling like you can't talk about certain things with people who don't make as much. I'm not rich, but I make more than some friends. There have been times when I tell them about something and I get a sarcastic, "must be nice" reception. There's a lot of isolation that comes with wealth, particularly if your wealth goes up more than your friends. It's minor at first, and not such a big deal, but over time the gap becomes bigger and bigger, and it can start to become difficult to bridge that gulf. When you're younger, you might have been able to afford a small house when your friends, who are also doing well but not quite as well, are looking to buy an apartment. A few years later, and you live in a bigger house, in a much nicer neighborhood than them. It's not that different,
but your friends tend to come to yours more and often comment about how nice where you live is. You've known these guys for years, after all. Some areas of conversation have gradually moved off the table. Your stresses and successes at work are going to be different to theirs. It's lonely at the top in companies as most people don't understand it. Why would they? It's stuff you only really get with experience. You do your best to talk about their work worries, but while you used to get it, it's starting to become hard to stay interested. Interpersonal work dramas aren't the same anymore. They seem so minor compared to the weight of leadership and livelihoods that you feel. So you really don't talk about that stuff anymore, which is fine. There's lots of other stuff you have in common. Except the overlap in interests is starting to lessen. Some of your interests have crept into higher income things. You used to go on similar holidays, but now you're going further afield and having more luxurious holidays because you work hard and only get so much time off. So why shouldn't you spend your hard-earned money on yourself? Maybe you used to like to talk about cars, but now it's a bit awkward talking about the car you're looking at getting because it's more than the house deposit your friends just spent ages saving up for. Okay, maybe gaming, but you've got the latest console or computer because you got it on launch without batting an eyelid at the price, and you can't play the new games you'd like with them. Little areas of your commonality are gradually getting chipped away. Eventually, you grow further and further apart from your old friends. You make new friends in your neighborhood, or other parents from their school. It all feels a little bit forced, and not as natural as you used to be with your old friends. You still meet up with them maybe once or twice a year. Most of your time together is spent reminiscing. On the whole, you're happy and comfortable with your life, but you still really miss your old friends and the good old days. Trust. Is anyone doing things because they actually care for you or because of your money? It is a real problem for rich guys I know looking for marriage. Actually having someone love you is another. A good friend of mine has a terribly rich father, and he said that his dad never had friends, like my parents do, who come by from time to time and bring a small present like something from their shop or from the market and drink coffee together, or drink in the evening. That changed my perspective on a few rich people when I was younger. They miss out on small acts of kindness because people think it wouldn't affect them. Being rich really works for me because I love being left alone. A friend of mine married into a family that has old money. Was never my friend's intention, just turned out that the awesome down-to-earth person my friend married was from serious old money. 2 of the adult children in the family are currently trying to stop their parents from buying random houses for other rich families' kids. They don't even want the money. They want the parent to invest in philanthropy and the local community. The parent won't do it and just wants the rich kids from other families to be grateful to them. So somewhere out there, some people my age from a wealthy family are getting a free house from another wealthy family. Meanwhile, my parents' unemployment ran out. We have about 2 months runway before we have nothing. We're picking groceries carefully to save a few dollars. Houses in our area have gone up $50,000 in the past year, and we may as well be renters forever. It's surreal. I guess this is where the whole clan thing starts. If those people are smart, they wouldn't accept free housing. That's bait that they will use to guilt people. Things don't always come with strings. In some circles, buying your kids a house when they get married is just what you do, and there's very little thought to it. Just keeping up with the Joneses. I know people like that. Not being able to understand what money means to people below their financial status. I'm well off compared to other people in my country, but go to a school where most people are actually wealthy. Between both levels, I see that people cannot relate to the people below them in that regard, and it causes friction. Like when my friend and I organize a holiday together, she doesn't understand why I get annoyed when she wants to wait until the last minute to book tickets because she genuinely doesn't care whether they're 50 or 500 euros. Or when my partner's family car got stolen, they didn't bother getting reimbursement from the insurance because it was too annoying to set up. This means people also sometimes don't reimburse you when you pay for lunch because they already forgot about this, and the $30 are nothing, so why would it be for you? And they don't notice when you get them a really nice gift because all the gifts they get are really nice. This isn't malicious at all, just a genuinely different perception of reality. I ran into an old friend who was doing extremely well a few years back, who grew up wealthy as well. He mentioned to me how he and his fiancée wanted to buy their own apartment in New York because he was sick of both of them, throwing out $3,000 each for rent each month, and how it was draining their ability to travel. Did not occur to him that as a teacher I made significantly less than $3,000 a month, and when I told him, he thought I was lying because he genuinely could not fathom living on less than $10,000 a month. It was eye-opening for both of us for different reasons. Before anyone asks, yes, he knew and knows the poor exist, but he didn't understand that his own friends were poor, by his standard or otherwise, and just how many of us were and are struggling to make ends meet. He thought most of us were living below our means on purpose, and it took this conversation for it to click for him why he didn't see any of his old friends traveling the world or getting professional portraits done or buying fancy cars. He thought we were just living lives and not doing those things just because, and not because we couldn't. Not rich myself, but I have a family member who earns low 7 figures annually. The biggest problem they've struggled with is that our whole family comes from being poor, and they're the ones that made it. They've had to cut off entire parts of the family, including siblings and parents, because everyone just wants stuff from them. One of their parents demanded they buy them a home because you owe me for raising you. It's even worse for their siblings. They have kept their social media feed on a week-long delay, so if they travel anywhere that other family members are, they won't hit them up with a new scheme or ask for a loan. It's terrible to watch. When my great-grandmother died, they found out she owned 2 vacant lots in the Bay Area that were now worth over $2 million. It's been 7 years and all these distant relatives are still suing each other over every penny of the money. My great-grandmother was a manipulative psychopath and intentionally made her will as vague as possible, and also changed it about once every 3 months for the last 2 decades of her life. They should get together and put all the money in an investment fund. They all get an equal payout from each year. It's all going to get wasted on lawyer fees otherwise. I grew up wealthy, but not obscenely rich. Here are a few. Personally, I find it hard to accept the fact that it's very unlikely that I'll make the same amount my parents did. 2. It's sometimes awkward when people realize that my family is wealthy, especially in college with a lot of left-wing people. 3. It was hard for my parents growing up to not spoil me, though personally, I think they did a very good job. Saying no to your kid when you easily have the means to say yes with little cost to yourself is hard. 4. It feels like a lot of your issues get downplayed because you're wealthy. I've been struggling with mental health for the past few years, and a lot of the time people's attitude is that when you're wealthy you don't have problems. It can feel very dismissive. I don't want this to sound like complaining, as I'm grateful for how I was raised. Just observations. Point 1 hits hard for me. My dad was a guy who barely graduated high school and yet managed to be unusually successful. Through a combination of a monster work ethic and being in the right place at the right time, starting his own business. It's highly unlikely I'll ever have half that career success, as I'm entering a field where most make 70 to 90K. Definitely can feel like you're not measuring up to your lineage sometimes. Also, the feeling that even if you do make it or even surpass them, the accomplishment feels undercut because you came from something, but Dad came from absolutely nothing. I have a specific one. I know a few people from extremely rich families. I see terrible outcomes with third-generation wealth. When Dad is super successful, the kid doesn't have to do much, but at least sees someone working. When that kid, who doesn't do crap, then has kids, his kids are completely unmoored from reality. It's a lonely, dark existence when you are completely incompatible with society. From my experience of working a day with a billionaire, just not being able to live a normal life, having a drink in an ordinary bar, having normal conversations not revolving around work, having time for a simple walk, and so on. I would say that this is not true for a very large number of mega-wealthy people in tech. Sure, you have your Musk types who will get recognized at many places, but there are plenty of unknown tech billionaires, and 100 millionaires, and foreign nationals that live in the United States at least part-time. Many of them are very normal and stand in line at Whole Foods next to you, and you would never know. If you've ever been to downtown Palo Alto on a Friday night for dinner, there is a very high chance that you are sitting amongst hundreds of millions and billions of dollars of net worth and would never be able to tell. Then add in the frequency in which you will see high-end Teslas on a daily basis, so it's really not that hard to blend in, where cars are sometimes a sign of extreme wealth. Some of the wealthiest people in tech, especially from the first tech boom in the mid-90s, have never had a Business Insider article written about them. Look at the net worth of the world's biggest celebrities, and their wealth is a joke compared to anyone who worked in the first 100 employees at Google, for example. Rinse and repeat for all of the unicorns. I'm pretty sure no one here could name more than a handful. Wealth can easily buy anonymity. This is so true. I have friends who were early engineers at Google, and I know how much a couple of them are worth. Every once in a while, I will find myself reading some news stories that mentions the net worth of a sports or movie star, and I think, oh, I would have expected it to be more. That's like half of what my friend John is worth. And yeah, you could be standing behind my friend in the checkout line at the grocery store and you wouldn't notice anything whatsoever to distinguish him from any other customer. My husband has a rich acquaintance who was just agonizing about buying a $5 million yacht, which will probably be used a handful of times a year, so he decided to buy only a $3 million yacht instead. I can't wrap my mind around it. Do you mean to tell me this schmo was buying a brand new, already assembled yacht and not having someone design and construct his multi-million-dollar yacht specifically for him? Damn, these are some pretty serious problems. It really makes you think.
Thanks for watching until the end. If you have a similar story to these that you want to share with us, please leave it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, take a look at our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.